Inside the Birds is back. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to the Inside the Birds live pregame show. I am Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds. Next to me, my Inside the Birds co-host Adam Caplan. Next to him, former Eagles Pro Bowl left tackle Trey Thomas. And next to him is the guy we just simply call the GOAT. That is the master of tape breakdown, the GOAT, Greg Cosell from NFL Films, and of course co-host of ESPN's Matchup Show. This show is brought to you by DraftKings. We are here at Goose Island Brewhouse in Fishtown. Come on down, come see us. We are excited to talk football for the next few hours. It's going to be a great time. It feels like it's late October already. It's a little brisk in the air. It's football weather, fellas. You guys ready?
Awesome. Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Let's hope the Eagles are ready.
Yeah. You know, last week at this time, there was a lot to talk about, a lot of optimism. This week, it's like, oh, man, is it already a must-win game? So we're gonna break this thing down again. We're at Goose Island Brewhouse in Fishtown. Come down and join us. They are premiering their new Fly PA IPA. First 50 people here will get one comped on Adam Caplan. No, that's kidding. He doesn't have that kind of money. It's going to be comped by Goose Island, so we thank them for being great hosts. And just to show you all that, you know, the internet, there's no rules, you're going to have a sip.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I'm almost done mine.
Yeah.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
And that's your third one, too.
That's right. Remember, that's the Fly PA IPA. All right, so we had about almost 20,000 viewers for our inaugural show last week, so we thank everybody for watching. We're looking forward to making this the most watched Eagles pregame show on the planet. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter, do us a favor, hit that retweet button, hit that repost, hit that share, help spread the word, and then come on down when you get a chance, come watch us as we do this. We'll be here every week before game day, 3 hours we start, taking you up to about an hour before kickoff. We're going to start off like we always do on Inside the Birds. We're going to share a little intel. Obviously, the big story today, Miles Sanders back for the Eagles in the lineup. Adam, he had some interesting things to say in his press conference this week that he could have played last week. That's something that you alluded to in your reporting on him being that close to playing.
Yeah, Geoff, let's go back to prior to week one, leading up to the Washington game. And I'm told that in practice he looked so good, it was almost like, well, why are you holding him out? But when you have a grade 2 hamstring strain and you're a running back, you got to be careful of setbacks and fluid in the hamstring. You got to get it all out. It was a medical decision. It was not a coaching decision. And the medical staff cleared him. He took all the reps, I'm told, for the first team this week. Looks great. Run, stop, start. Everything you can do at running back, he did it. He's ready to go here, and he's going to be featured in this game, and they need to because I could tell you, they were not super happy with the run game last week.
No, they should not have been. Not only were they not happy with the run or able to run a lot, they did not choose to run a lot, only 17 runs. We'll talk a little bit about the play calling and the balance. But, Trey, I want to ask you just from a being ready standpoint. I don't know if you've had hamstring issues at all throughout your career.
No, that's a fast man's.
Yeah, that's
a fast man injury. You know,
you're
big
more
guys.
of the knees and joints.
By the way,
I never had to worry about pulling a hamstring.
If an offensive lineman has this grade 2 hamstring strain, they can come back within 2 weeks. It's actually exactly what Trey's talking about. If you're running back a wide receiver, you're not playing in 2 weeks, you're playing in 4 weeks, and that's what happened here.
How much of that has become like a medical decision? I mean, there's the player, there's the team docs, there's the agent, there's the coaches. So what goes into like deciding when a guy is that close whether he's going to play or not?
Well, you know, when you have a medical staff, that's what they're there for, to protect the player from himself. Because a lot of times the players are programmed to just want to go out there and play, and they feel like, you know what, I'm walking good, I'm running good, but I feel like I can go out there and get it. But when you have the medical staff there and they start looking at the different exams and tests that's going on, then that's what they're there for, to make sure that they protect the player from himself, and let's make the best decision so that they can last along throughout the season.
Greg, who does Miles Sanders' presence impact the most today? Is it going to help Carson? Going to help the O-line? Doug Pederson?
Well, I've always been a believer, and Trey can address this as well, but I've always been a believer that a running back makes an offensive line better. You know, there's been a lot of, through the years, people say, well, you can't run unless you have a great offensive line. I think a really good back makes an offensive line better because of his patience, his vision, his ability to get through small creases at the point of attack, just his ability to see what's in front of him and digest it so intuitively and instinctively. And this, to me, relates back to, and we'll talk more about this last week, when they only had 17 called runs. To me, the run game is more about volume. I don't think you can make a determination about the run game on 17 called runs. Because even great backs, you can have a 2-yard run, a 1-yard run, -2, 3, 9, 2, 3, 12. To me, the run game is about continuing the run game. And certainly if you're ahead in a game, I think that's something you should be doing. So it's very hard for me to, and I watched the tape, of course, as I know Trey did, it's very hard for me to make a determination that, hey, the run game was not good just based on 17 runs, particularly in a game where you were ahead until what? When did Washington get ahead? Fourth quarter?
Yeah, third, fourth quarter, yeah.
So, I mean, that to me, the run game's always about volume.
About volume. Okay, well, we're going to get into the run game. We're going to talk about Miles Sanders' impact on this game. We're going to talk about any changes after the Eagles went and blew that 17-point lead, 24 unanswered points in their season opener against the Washington football team in a loss that in Philly kind of felt like the team is now 0-10. I mean, if you're listening to Sports Talk Radio or reading stuff, I mean, you'd think that the Eagles were eliminated last week. But they've got their home opener against the Rams today, a team they have traditionally played well against in the last few years, and at a place, the Link, where they've also played well. So all hope is not lost. It's just week 2. Let's get into who else is in and who else is out. We know Vinny Curry, and we saw it looked gruesome, is going to be out. He's on IR with a hamstring strain. We know Craig James, one of their top backups and special teamers at cornerback there, is going to be out. Let's talk about some other injuries. Let's start off with Alshon, because, Adam, he's still not even practicing. So about when do you think this guy is going to be able to play, if at all?
All right, so let's go back to what type of injury this is and why it's taking so long. The Liz Frank injury, which, by the way, Deuce Staley had, it was the first time I ever heard it, was in 2000, 2001. It's a 9 to 12-month rehab. The surgery was around December 14th. So we're now past the 9-month mark. He's close because he's been able to run, cut and stop and start, but he's not practicing yet. Once he starts practicing and he doesn't have any setbacks or he's not super sore, you should play the following week. But Geoff, he's not even practiced yet, and tomorrow starts week 3. So remember, they decided not to keep him on reserve PUP, which means he would have to miss 6 weeks. They clearly believed he would play within those 6 weeks. So we're still in that mode here. Right now, they're depending on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to be that guy, to be that physical possession receiver. But Geoff, he didn't do anything last. He didn't get the ball. Yeah. They need somebody other than Greg Ward, who's a possession receiver, to make a play sort of in the intermediate area, and they didn't do that last week.
Yeah, you guys looked at how the wide receivers played, and, Rager made a few plays. Hightower had a chance to, but did not. But how much of, from a professionalism and, as Adam alluded to, just somebody who can kind of get the ball and make a catch when things aren't going well, how much was Alshon missed in that game last week?
I think so. You definitely needed someone that could go out there and make some of those tough catches. There were a couple times, because Carson wasn't at his best in this game. There were some passes where the ball sailed a little bit and you needed a receiver that didn't mind going up and getting it. So you would need that type of player that's not afraid of going across the middle, a vet that's like, all right, you know what, it's showtime. I need to go make a play for this team.
Mm-hmm. I would add as well that the way this league has now developed, so many teams now line up with that boundary X receiver, the single receiver to the short side of the field, on the back side of trips, on the back side of 3 receivers.
Right.
You need that receiver, the boundary X, to make some contested catches. Mm-hmm. That's the way the league has moved. If you get one-on-one with your boundary X, you want to throw him the football. Right now, they don't really have a boundary X. I mean, Rager's a rookie. So you can't count on him right now. And the reality is he is 5'11". Now, there's all kinds of boundary X receivers. You don't have to be 6'3". But bigger receivers tend to be better able to make those contested catches along the sideline.
Yeah, Greg, I'm a little, I think about the Eagles' identity. And something you said last year was that in watching the Eagles with all their injuries, right?
I don't remember what I said yesterday.
I remember it like it was. It's the only thing I remember.
I understand.
I don't remember anything except what you said yesterday, amazingly. What you said last year was that watching tape, the Eagles were the slowest offense in the NFL and maybe one of the slowest offenses you've ever seen. And Alshon Jeffrey is not a speed guy. And clearly they bring in Rager to play that X. So when you've got 2 tight ends on the field, like the Eagles do a lot, you're a little bit slower, even though you have very good tight ends. If you put Alshon Jeffrey back at the X, even though he's a good bulk, pass receiver, aren't you still not as dynamic and explosive as you want to be?
Ideally, and the Eagles know this. That's why they drafted Rager. That's why they drafted Hightower. Theoretically, Watkins fits that category as well. We'll see. He's a 6th-round pick. Those guys are maybe yes, maybe no guys. At the end of the day, you need some explosiveness in your offense. It's very difficult in this league to consistently go 12, 13 plays and score. Because what happens on drives like that is you constantly have to convert third downs. And that's tough. You know, Trey can speak to this, of course, as well. At some point, you need to orchestrate, manufacture explosive plays. Now, explosive plays doesn't mean a 70-yard touchdown, but you need to create chunk plays, 25, 30-yard plays somewhere along the line.
Right.
You know, the Eagles struggled to do that. They had the big third, I think it was 3rd and 22 when he hit Rager. Then the other long pass to Rager, which I'm going to say this and I'll tell you for a fact, people are pointing to Wentz. That was on Rager. Rager did not come out of his break with any kind of burst. I don't know if he didn't think he was going to get the ball.
You just hit on it. That's it?
I don't know if he thought the ball was because it was an excellent cover 4 beater route concept with 2 routes to that side of the field. I don't know if he thought that the tight end Hurts was going to get the ball in the out route and figured, hey, I don't need to run my route. But the safety Apke leveled off, and the throw then became to the post. Carson made the right throw, but Rager did not come out of his break. It was actually a perfect throw.
So, Greg, you had asked me about cover 4. I just talked to a coach who's on his way to the stadium for a team that's playing out down south. You asked about cover 4. You said
it's becoming much more predominant in the league.
Was kind of in vogue in coverage last year, this coach said. Solid versus run and pass. I wouldn't say there's more, but it's something that you're seeing teams do more and more each week.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, I can see it on tape. Just watching the whole league, I see a whole lot more. And some of it could be a function, just talking football before we get back to the Eagles, is that a lot more teams are playing with fullbacks, a lot more teams are running the ball, and in cover 4, safeties are closer to the line of scrimmage than they are, let's say, in cover 2, and they have a run and a pass responsibility. And in fact, the run responsibility is first. So you can put safeties in conflict offensively in cover 4 because any player that has a run and a pass responsibility, you can put in conflict with your concepts.
Using a fullback, running the ball more. It's like, the cycle of the NFL. Do we credit Bill Belichick for this too? I mean,
well, because a lot of linebackers coming out of college are 225 pounds and they're speed guys.
Yeah, the Eagles drafted one in the 3rd round this year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Lane Johnson. He has said, and we'll hear more from Lane Johnson in this show, he has said he's going to play. And he has talked about, the ankle surgery. Adam talked about the tightrope surgery that he had a couple of weeks ago. He's back. I guess what I wonder right now, Trey, from your vantage point, I think even he said he's not necessarily 100%, but he's going to go out there and give it his all. He's got a pretty good defensive front that he's going to be facing. What do you expect from him? Is this better for the offense right now?
Well, you know what? You definitely want to bring Lane in just because he means so much to the offensive line. You want to have your 5 best guys out there. Now, is Jack going to be your 5th best guy? I don't know. But having Lane in there is definitely something that you want. Now, the problem that I have with Lane is I don't know which ankle is it. Is it his right or his left? Because that means a lot. If you're saying that it's your right ankle, and now that means that you have to set out and you get that bull rush, you're going to have to plan on that outside ankle. If it's your inside foot, then all right, you're pushing off. But if you get that inside move, then that's going to create a problem. So this is going to be a little tricky just seeing how all of this plays out to see how Lane comes back because you're going to need him to be 110 because this defensive front is going to test him.
What did you think of Driscoll?
I thought that Jack played a good job. He did a good, solid job. When you find out the morning of the game that you're about to start against one of the better defensive fronts in the game, and you're going to have Kerrigan, who's possibly a future Hall of Fame defensive end that's in the game, and you're going to be up against the 2nd pick in the draft in Chase Young, I thought that he went out there and he handled himself extremely well, for someone that found out the morning of the game, and just even still, period. If he knew that he was going to be starting this game, for this to be his first start, I think that he came out there and handled himself.
Yeah, let me add a couple things off of what Trey just said. Driscoll, I'm told, took a majority of the first-team reps, but the teammates were convinced that the night before he was going to play, Lane Johnson would play. And as you just said, they knew the morning of Lane wasn't going to be able to go. And to be able to do that is not easy. And this is a 4th-round pick who, by the way, probably needs to get stronger physically. He's not the biggest guy in the world. But the reason why Geoff Stoutland loves him is because he's technique sound. And when you're a rookie without an offseason, without a preseason, Geoff, and you could be technique sound, you got a chance.
Yeah,
absolutely. 2 defensive linemen who are sort of up in the air. Well, actually just one. It's Brandon Graham. Had the concussion earlier this week. I was told that he's actually looked good all week. He has progressed well through the concussion protocol was the last I heard. So I know he was listed, I believe, on the injury report.
Questionable still.
Questionable. but I was hearing that he's looked good, he's felt good, so I would expect, unless there was a setback, that he'll go today. They really need him.
That's a medical thing, right? I mean, that's not
Totally
a team
medical.
thing.
Right.
That's totally
You have to
medical.
get through the-
You have to
get
pass
through
a test.
5 steps of the protocol.
Yeah.
He got through it.
So I guess we
unless
don't know.
something
Yeah.
happens, Jeff's right. Unless
Right.
something happens
Yeah.
before the game, he's playing today, and boy, do they need him.
Now, some people, because he was on the practice report, he did practice at some point this week, either Thursday or Friday, or both, and people interpreted that as you're good to go. But I believe that is part of the concussion protocol, is that to pass through it, you have to get out on the field and do some activity.
That's return to play. Yeah, he's on the return to play part. Yes.
Right. Now, as for Vinny Curry, he's on IR. It's the 3-game IR, three game IR, I'm told. Now, you know what, hamstrings and big guys, as Trey just mentioned, could it be longer than 3 weeks? It could be, but as gruesome as it looked, and I was told that he was in some of the worst pain of his life when he pulled it, it was feeling better the next day, and they only feel like it's going to be the short-term IR and not the long-term. So that's good news for a defensive line that, you know, we talked about it last week. They didn't have a whole lot of rundown kind of defensive ends. They didn't have, you know, once Derek Barnett was injured throughout camp, they needed Vinny Curry there because a lot of their backups were situational or unproven. And then, of course, they released Sharif Miller. So as Trey Thomas so eloquently spoke it in his show, that on our show, Grilling the Birds, when you were asked about the defensive end rotation, you simply said, I don't know.
Who knows?
Right.
Who's going to be in there?
Right.
Who's going to be the guy? You know, when you have Brandon down, you have if BG is going to be able to play, I don't know, but Vinny Curry down. What's the situation of Barnett? Everybody's saying that he's going to be able to play, but then now, who's going to be your guy that you're going to bring in to be that change of pace? Because Barnett's not going to play every snap.
Right.
So who's your rotational guy? Is Avery going to be ready to go?
I guess we're going to find out.
Malik Jackson could end up seeing snaps at the end because he's done that in his career.
Did he have any last week? Did you notice?
He
that?
did. I believe he did.
Yeah.
But then I love that. And when you have a big guy playing out there at defensive end, it makes it a lot easier for tackles.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
All right, because the Rams are not the Eagles, they really only have one injury to talk about, right? Which we'll probably say week to week by the opponent. But Gerald Everett, their tight end, as Adam has talked about on our podcast, he did practice Friday. He's listed as questionable. They expect him to play?
Yeah, he's sore, but he gives them the ability to play 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and 2 receivers. He's their move tight end. He's a super athletic cover 2 beater. This is what a defensive coordinator told me. Against cover 2, particularly cover 3, in that void in the middle, he's the guy who you beat with your tight end. So I'm interested to see how, as long as he's active today, see how he plays. So, Greg, he's a guy who can move.
Well, the reason that's important in my view is I think you'll see them line up in some 12 and see how the Eagles play that. If the Eagles go base with T.J. Edwards at Mike linebacker, I think they will attack him. I think Washington showed that in the second half last week when they hit Logan Thomas for 19 yards. I think teams will feel in the Eagles' base defense that T.J. Edwards is the player you can attack.
So go big, but then pass out of the big formations.
Oh, yeah, no. The NFL now, people think, 12 personnel means just you grind the ball. Not even close anymore in today's NFL. That might have been true 20, 25 years ago, but that's not the case at all.
Yeah, especially when you go back and you look at what happened against Washington. Our first play, the big catch from Dallas, the first catch was a 12 personnel.
Exactly.
And then they played base, but then after that, every time we came in 12 personnel, they matched us at nickel.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what a lot of defenses do. So we'll see how the Eagles match up to that because Everett certainly can line up as a flexed or wing tight end, which means he's closer to the formation, but he also lines up either as the boundary X or as number 1 to trips, meaning he's split outside. So the Rams have they do a lot of things when they line up with 2 tight ends. And just keep one thing in mind. Last year, in down the stretch, weeks 13 to 17, they lined up in 12 personnel, second most in the NFL to the Eagles. So people might think of them, they're just 11 personnel, 3 wide. They can line up in 12, and they feel very comfortable doing that.
During that time, Tyler Higbee set an NFL record with most 100-yard gains for a tight end in NFL history. This guy, we don't talk about him enough.
I loved him coming out of Western
good.
Kentucky.
And what's funny is you say that. He was a big-time pass catcher at Western Kentucky.
Yep.
But Sean McVay made him a blocking tight end. Remember Daniel Graham?
Well, he was a detached player at Western Kentucky. He was a split player.
And now he was big time last year, so we'll see what they do today. But a couple more injury notes, Geoff, that I want to talk to before we move on here. Javon Hargrave. If you talked to Geoff or I after Wednesday's practice, I would have said there's no way he's playing. Thursday, I'm told he looked really good. Friday, he took his number 1 reps. He's playing today, Geoff. He doesn't have any injury status for the game.
Well, I was told this. Javon Hargrave looks solid. at practice, and I was told that Derek Barnett has been improving. And as we just mentioned with the defensive line rotations, you're going to need both guys today for a lot of different reasons. Let's talk about some guys that the Eagles actually brought in this week. They signed 2 guards, one from their own practice squad, Sua Opeta, which is something that they did last year as well. And then another bigger one was signing Jamon Brown, the veteran offensive guard from the Chicago Bears practice squad. Really, he played for the Atlanta Falcons last year. He was a 3rd-round pick of the Rams about 5 or 6 years ago. Started 47 games.
No, he's played, yeah.
This is a guy who has some experience.
And he's big.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wonders, Doug didn't say it, but he also didn't slam the door on it. Does this guy get in the game at all today? Does he even start over Nate Herbig? I wouldn't bet money on that, but Doug said they wanted to get him on the field as soon as possible.
Yeah, but like with the offensive line, it's not something that you just get guys in and out, So this would be something that if he's going to be a guy that's going to get some playing time, he's going to start. So I think that's probably something that'll happen probably next week, with this being his first week.
Let me ask you a question, Trey, off that. You've played for Juan Castillo, we know. Obviously, you look at Jeff Stoutland. How easy is it going to be for Jamon Brown to learn those techniques? Because I know Stoutland's techniques are a little bit different than most players are used to.
Well, I think it's going to be more of the terminology, because at the end of the day, you just want him to go out there and feel comfortable and play, because he's only have a couple days to come in here and just get going. He's not going to have a chance to really go in and give him a lot of different technique. It's going to be more about the terminology, how we're calling plays, how the combination blocks are working, who they're working up to, and then you just take it from there. Because again, now this guy is very familiar with our defensive front. His first play against Atlanta, he went out there and put Fletcher Cox on his back. And then you had a screen play where he came out there and he put Barnett on his back as well. So he's a guy that this team is very familiar with, and you bring him in, he can come out there and be that push at guard, someone that could possibly create movement in the run game.
And the terminology, I think, will be okay, because he came from Chicago. And it's Matt Nagy, who was in Kansas City, when Doug Pederson was in Kansas City. So I think the terminology may not be as extreme as it might be in other circumstances.
All right. Well, that'll be somebody that we will keep our eyes on, Jamon Brown. Someone who's familiar with both his tape and what the Bears do, because he was with the Bears throughout training camp, said, don't think just because he was with the Matt Nagy coach team that he's going to come here and all the terminology is the same.
No,
the Bears
changes
have
a
changed
little.
things up a little bit with verbiage and how. So
Yeah.
they're not the carbon copy of Doug Peterson's Eagles that they maybe were a year or two
And then
ago.
he was working under a good offensive line coach there in Chicago, who is Juan Castillo.
Juan Castillo.
You know very, very well.
you Castillo acolytes will throw his name in anything.
Hey,
right?
man, I mean, come on, man. I mean, he's one of the best.
I know.
He's
We
one of
love
the best
Juan.
in the game.
Shout out to Juan Castillo. All right. Also, the Eagles signed Jordan Franks to the practice squad after a workout last week, and then they protected the following 4 players: Deontay Burnett, T.Y. McGill, Joe Osment, and Trevor Williams. Williams gets promoted today, as Adam, I believe you predicted would happen, because they're so thin at backup corner.
Yeah, they do not have any backup outside corners here, so he has to be the guy. Craig James was put on IR for 3 games. He would have been that guy, so this is a problem. So when the Rams go 11 personnel, and if Trevor Williams is out there, they will attack him, because that screams matchup advantage, and Sean McVay knows that.
Maybe the biggest news is not a guy that the Eagles brought in, but a guy who worked out for the Eagles this week or talked to them. Who will work out.
Yes.
Okay, it's Devontae Freeman, the former Falcons running back, who's been out in free agents for a long time. I believe he fired his agent. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he went to Drew Rosenau. See, here's what happened. Devontae Freeman wanted a
Trey's
lot of
got
money.
stories.
He turned down a lot of money with the Seahawks, okay? The Eagles also liked him. Remember, we reported on our show first that the Eagles wanted to sign Carlos Hyde. So what did Hyde do? He took the same deal that the Seahawks offered Devontae Freeman for upside up to $4 million. Tomorrow starts week 3. Freeman's got to be realistic here. He's not getting anywhere close to $4 million. Now, he could get upside to $4 million. What the Eagles, I'm told, are looking for is an insurance policy. If Sanders cannot play for a specific amount of time, 3-4 weeks, they got to have an answer. Boston Scott, folks, is not that answer. He's a change-up. There's certain things he can do. But if you want to run the ball and grind it, Freeman could do that. Now, I could tell you, I talked to a team that has interest in Freeman other than the Eagles. Their concern with Freeman is this. Power running backs, like Freeman, like Chris Carson, remember Chris Ivory? There's a whole list of power backs.
Yeah, they get hurt.
Exactly, Geoff. They lead with their shoulder. They take a lot of physical contact. Over time, they wear down, and Freeman wore down the last 2 seasons. So you got to understand what he is at this point of his career, 28 years old. but he's much better than what they have as a backup running back.
All right, I want you to repeat it because I know if it happens, the people are going to say it. If the Eagles sign Devontae Freeman, we're going to hear that RBBC label,
No.
running back by committee. You're saying no?
No, that's not
true.
what they want.
Insurance policy.
Yeah, they want someone in back of them. Let's say they have a lead, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's say they have a lead in the fourth quarter by 14 points, and they want to grind it out. Go to Freeman, or go to that guy who's got size. If it's a tight game and they still want to give Miles Sanders a breather, this is the guy to grind it out. Scott did a good job last year. We don't want to downgrade him, but he did a good job in 2 games. Both happened to be against the Giants. Mm-hmm. The game at halftime where they were getting blown out at home and they got booed off the field, you remember that. They put Scott in, and he did a good job, and then when Miles tweaked his ankle late in the season, they went to Scott.
Right.
He did a good job. But
right.
over time, to finish this off, Geoff, he is not a guy, Boston Scott, who you believe could carry the load for 4 to 5 games.
All right, let's get into this man's favorite segment. We're going to go into Trench Talk.
Yeah.
Real quick first, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever platform, please hit that retweet button, share it, make it go viral. This is the best in-depth analysis you're going to get on an Eagles pregame show, so please help us make the most watched pregame show on the planet. And remember, if you get down here, there's still get yourself a comped Fly PA IPA courtesy of Goose Island Brewhouse. Not only that, the first 50 people will get that, and maybe a ride home from Trey Thomas after the show. He's got a nice car. Trust me, I've seen it. All right, Trench Talk. This is Trey's favorite segment. I want to talk more about Lane Johnson, and we talked about him just kind of helping the communication and just having that veteran presence out there. But I'm really fixated on what Trey said about the ankle injury, specifically with anchoring and setting. I mean, I imagine they're going to try to test him, Trey.
Oh, absolutely, they're going to try to test him. They know that he's coming off of this injury, and for a player to come out there and just give all this information, it was just kind of like, I'm like, whoa, did you also go ahead and tweet out your MRI results as well? Because you come out and say, hey man, my ankle, I had surgery, I'm not at 100%, I'm going to go out there and give it a shot. What are you doing? You know the Rams are going to sit out there and like, oh, okay, he's going to be playing now. He's the one that we want to test to make sure that his ankle is up to speed, to make sure that he's up to par. So I think that this is definitely something that they're going to test him.
Are you surprised that him saying that? I mean, you almost make it seem like back in the day a head coach would have been like, no.
No, you don't do
that.
that.
You don't do that.
Yeah, no, you don't. As a player, they didn't want anybody talking about injuries.
No.
You just you want to try to hide all that. I mean, just take a Doug for the entire time that he was down, he was day to day, knowing that he had surgery,
right.
But he was day to day all of those during that whole time. There was no talk about a surgery until Lane came out and said, hey, I had a surgery.
And as Trey said earlier in our show here, if you're the team that's playing, in this case the Rams, you want to know whether it's the right ankle or the left ankle. Because if you go back
somebody knows,
to last year's
me.
tape.
Somebody knows.
Greg, the advanced people will look at that tape last year. They're going to find it.
No
and
question.
They're going to find the right ankle.
Well, Lane actually explained a little bit about the injury, and we're going to introduce a new segment for this week and probably beyond. Derek Gunn is going to join this show. Part of his Gun on One podcast this week involved a sit-down with Lane Johnson. Lane had a lot to say about his injury, about not playing it and being able to get out on the field this week, so we're going to go to that right now. Here's Lane Johnson with Derek Gunn.
Hey Johnson. Lane, how you doing today? Welcome to Gun on One.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, so let's go to the beginning. So you go out there for pregame warm-ups. You're going through all of the things you need to go through to possibly get ready for a game. Did you honestly think that you had a shot at playing that game Sunday against Washington?
It was a long shot. In a perfect world, we were talking about getting back this week. So, attacking the rehab process, getting through that, and then, wanting to play. I want to be out there with my guys. So that's in store this week.
So how long ago did you have the ankle surgery, and what does the rehab consist of?
I had surgery about 2 weeks ago. A lot of it is, you got to reduce the swelling, likes to swell up in the recovery process. And a lot of it's just getting strength and proprioception, your balance back. And so really that's it. So just getting strength back in it, limiting the pain and should be ready to go.
I think a lot of people don't understand that you played through much of last season with an ankle injury also similar to this, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think the last 2 years, this has all kind of been leading up to this. So it hadn't really been 100%. I since took the hit in Jacksonville and then the hit last year against the Giants. So kind of been on one leg for some time. So once I get the strength back, I'm ready to be a different player.
So why did you take so long to get this corrected then?
I mean, it was something that I was working through. Just continuing to I felt fine going into camp, and then one of those things in the scrimmage where it got nicked up, and then had to be cleaned up. So, a lot of it's scar tissue in there from past injuries. But it's like other guys go through the same process. You got to break through that, rehab it up, get your strength back, and then once that happens, then you'll be ready to go.
I've said it on record many a times, and I'll say it in front of you right here. You are one of the toughest football players mentally and physically that I know. And if Lane Johnson can't get out on the football field, Lane Johnson has to be hurt, man. So, so now you're not going to play this game on Sunday against Washington. And we find out that rookie Jack Driscoll is going to start at right tackle in your place. And Nate Herbig, who only has a few games under his belt, is starting at right guard, and people are going into the game saying, oh, my goodness. Now, knowing you like I know you, now, Jeff Stoutland is one of the best offensive line coaches in the game, but I know you're trying to coach up Jack Driscoll just a little bit before he takes on this task. What are you telling him?
I'm telling both those guys to not think, you get out there, you're trying to make everything perfect. Last thing you want to do on the football field is be out there thinking and overthinking things. So I said, man, don't think. I said, our coach likes to say, rely on your training, sink to that process. You don't have to rise to the occasion. And for the most part, man, I thought they played pretty well. I mean, there was some stuff you like to have back, but for their first start, they stepped up to the plate. And, as far as young guys progressing, these guys just keep climbing.
So when we all find out who's playing on the right side of the offensive line, I'm texting somebody on the field. I said, what's going to happen? And they text me back, run left, throw quick. Neither of which you guys did consistently. What jumped out at you the most in terms of what started out well, but you got away from, and it just kept getting worse after that?
Yeah, I thought we started off well. We had a good tempo, sense of urgency. We had some deep throws, and then really came out the second half, and I feel like the run game was stagnant. And I guess, you see the last 11 drives, a lot of punts and stuff like that, and really not converting on some of the downs that we needed to. And, when you do that in this league, you're going to lose ball games. So it doesn't matter who you're playing. And, it's really unacceptable from our point of view. And, we're all in this together, and it's been a while since we started the season. I feel like 0-1, but, it's a good punch in the face. And, I think the urgency to get things corrected is very high.
Once Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio figured out what you guys were trying to do, man, they unleashed the hounds. You got Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, that first-round pick Chase Young, Matt Ioannidis, who people know here well. He went to Temple. Man, they just kept bringing the house, and you guys couldn't stop them. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of confusion. You had no Miles Sanders. The whole Pro Bowl right side of your offensive line is gone. Man, there was confusion everywhere, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go back and look at it, some of the sacks are a timing issue. Maybe somebody's not over. First read didn't open. Maybe a missed assignment. So there's a lot of misconception with sacks as far as guys playing out getting beat. There may been a couple, but a lot of it I think may have been just MAs. Had to go back and watch the film, but from our standpoint, we have a high standard, the offensive line, and in order to win games, we have to play better, and that goes for all the games coming forward too.
Do you think Carson holds the ball a little bit too long? Because a lot of times, they always tell you, throw the ball away and live to play another day.
Yeah, but I think he's so good at extending plays. Part of what makes him so good is throwing on the run. A lot of these plays that he's made a name for is throwing on the run and getting out of the pocket when things don't happen. So it's a double-edged sword when it comes to that. But as far as Carson, man, he's going to be the guy that's going to be taking us a long way this year. So, 0-1 is not where we want to be, but as far as having mental fortitude and toughness, we got it.
All right, big thanks to Derek Gunn for sharing part of his Gun on One podcast with us. It's going to be a part of this show every Sunday going forward, or Thursday night or Monday, whenever the Eagles play. Also, make sure you check out the new Inside the Birds production. It's called Grillin' the Birds, featuring Derek Gunn and our own Trey Thomas. It's going to be every week, coming out on either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. We're still working on that. Yeah. But the first one's already out, so you go to the Inside the Birds YouTube channel and check it out. It's Grillin' the Birds with Trey Thomas and Derek Gunn.
Yeah.
Fellas, Lane Johnson was pretty candid there. He talked about how he hurt the ankle last year twice. The first game against Jacksonville, again against the Giants. He was asked why didn't he get it taken care of sooner, which is a question you had asked on our last show.
Yeah.
And he said, I thought it was all good until the recent scrimmage. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're not buying it.
No, I mean, when you have an ankle injury, and maybe it was okay. You felt like, all right, I'm good, everything. So thank you. Everything was good. But here he is now, where it's a situation where we need you, and you go and have a surgery like this that's going to put you down for a couple weeks, and to me, that's something that you need to make sure that you take care of right soon as the season's over with. If it's something like that, just go ahead and take care of it. But instead, you have all these videos of you jumping up on plyo boxes, you dancing in the locker room, and then the next thing you know, you have an ankle surgery and you're down for a month.
All right.
It just doesn't, to me,
Was he a good dancer, though?
I mean,
oh, come on, it wasn't bad.
I mean, it wasn't bad. And then he took a pad set at the end of his dance, and I'm like, well, the pad set looked okay.
Is that not like the Super Bowl shuffle?
I don't know, but I'm like, man, come on, man, we need you. Your team needs you, and you're sitting up here.
Let me ask you guys this: Do you regard Lane Johnson as the best right tackle in the game? I mean, there's some pretty good ones. I feel
Mitchell
like
Schwartz is really good.
Yeah, Mitchell Schwartz. I was going to mention. Yeah.
When he's on, I think that he could be one of the better ones in the game. I think that there are times that he kind of gets a little lax with his technique, and he gets out there and he starts grabbing. He takes the wrong set lines at times that puts everybody in trouble, where he'll set at a 45 and overset the defensive end and gives up the inside lane a couple times, But when he's on, I think he is definitely one of the better ones.
But it's interesting that Trey says that because, and he knows the details of the position better than I mean, the specific techniques. But I think for a guy who's considered to be great, to me, he has a few too many bad snaps.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, and that's what I'm talking. Like, he'll get out there sometimes and he oversets the defensive end. And I talked to Lane a lot, where I'm like, look, man, you should look at his stance and could be able to tell if you understand. Because I talked to Lane when his rookie year when we drafted him. Mm-hmm. I was working with the offensive line at the time as an assistant coach. So I taught him a lot of the stuff that Juan taught us when it comes to counting steps and understanding the way the defensive end's alignment is and which foot he has back, which set line you need to take. Uh-huh. And there are a couple of times where you see him, he gets out there and he oversets the defensive end, which gives up the inside lane. He gives up the inside, or it exposes you to any kind of games or whatever. So when he's on, but then there are times that it's just not right.
Real quick, I want you to expand on oversetting and giving up. Does that mean he's dropping back too fast before a punch? Or?
Let's say if you're setting at a 45, because there are times that he sets at a 45.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you're talking about an offensive line sets, it's either you're going to set at a vertical, you're going to set at a 45, or you're going to jump set.
Right.
Now, there are times that he sets at a 45 where he takes too many kicks at a 45. Mm-hmm. For me, as a tackle, I only want to take 2 kicks at a 45 because that's going to put me in range. That's going to put me right where I want to be in position. You always want to be a little inside out of the defensive end. Now, if you take 3 and 4 kicks, then now you're way too far because now the defensive end can take you inside.
And are you a believer, because I've spoken with offensive line coaches about this, that when you start your set, that you do not, that inside foot, you do not want to turn it to the sideline at least until after your second kick slide.
Yeah,
because otherwise you're turning your shoulders to the sideline.
Yes, because if you turn that foot, then now you open it up your shoulders, which creates that gives up the outside edge.
All right, I'm curious as we move from right tackle to right guard. Nate Herbig probably gets the start today. Jamon Brown, probably the guy who's waiting in the wings to take over. No one seems to think Jamon's going to play today. He's still got to learn the offense maybe next week. But tell me what you thought of Herbig last week and if it's sustainable today versus Aaron Donald in that front.
Well, when I go back and I look at Nate's game, and it's kind of hard to say, okay, did he do a good job or not? Because he spent a lot of time nuzzled up to Kelsey.
Yeah.
When you go back and you watch that film, he spent a lot of time under Kelsey's wing. where if it was a combination pass block or whatever, he was always nuzzled up to Kelsey. There were very few times that he was one-on-one and took his guy by himself. So when it comes to even the run game, when you look at the game and you look at the sideline, and this is how you can tell if an offensive line is winning or if they're losing. If you don't see that offensive line push that defensive line back, if you see them just stalemated, the offensive line is not winning right now. And to me, when you go back and you look at him, to me, I don't think that he creates enough movement when it comes to run blocking. I don't think that he's strong enough because he takes little steps to get moving. And as when you're talking about a guard, it needs to be 1, 2, 3. You're creating power by that third step. And it's a step progression that has to happen when you're trying to create movement. But when you're sitting up there and you're taking all these little steps, all you're going to do is get stalemated. And you're not winning as an offensive guard when that happens.
You're not generating power
No.
through your hips and your core,
Right.
and that's what you really need to do.
It feels a little bit like the Nate Herbig, Jack Driscoll pairing and start and the breakdowns kind of overshadowed the fact that some other guys on the offensive line did not play great last week, Jason Kelsey being one, and Jason Peters, Adam, kind of flew under the radar as far as guys who may not have played to the standard.
Yeah, I'm told that Peters, if you graded all 5, was 5th.
Fifth?
Well, let's put
Wow.
it this way. The person I spoke with said that they have not seen him play at this lower level in years. Like, he just had too many plays where you go, you know what, he's on his back. He just didn't play to the standard we're used to. But the thing is, and Jason Kelsey said this very well after the game, they all had plays they'd like to have back. When all of them have 5 or 6 plays you like to have back, you've lost. It's hard to win that way.
Yeah.
It's just hard to win that way.
And I think when you look at JP, I think that his right knee is not 100%.
He's on the injury report, by the way, on that.
I think that his knee is still giving him problems. There were times where I saw him have to sit down on the bull rush, and I saw him kind of turn a little bit instead of being able to just really anchor down.
Yeah.
There are times when JP was healthy. Man, I've seen JP sit down on a bull rush and then turn his legs into churning, where he went from a bull rush to driving the defensive end upfield. And I mean, I had never seen a tackle be able to do something like that. But you saw him starting to turn a little bit, trying to favor that knee a little bit, and I think that his knee is not quite where it needed to be. Now, there was one time where Chase Young gave him a spin move for a sack that was a sack fumble. That what right there was on the running back there, because he had the defensive end running upfield at times. I would tell running backs all the time, if I'm running that defensive end upfield, do not chip him if he's a guy that's going to spin. But, when you don't have any preseason games and you don't really understand what this defensive end is going to present you, that's the outcome of that, where the running back chips and then it's a spin, sack, fumble.
Well, I think at some point, can we talk about the Rams, and what they bring to the table here?
Yeah. We're
Okay,
gonna get into the Rams.
because one of the things with the Rams that was evident on tape last week is they were pretty multiple with their front looks. And I think you'll continue to see that. And I think what they can do, everybody looks at Aaron Donald, and I know we'll get to him more specifically, but everyone looks at Aaron Donald just being an inside player. But there were a lot of snaps. I know it's a different coordinator last year, but there are snaps where he'll line up as a wide 9 defensive end. I would not be surprised to see that today, whether he lines up against Lane Johnson or JP, because they can do that. And one thing they do, and we were talking about this before the show, is they line up now with what is called a tilted front, meaning there's 3 defensive linemen to one side of the center and a wide 9 defensive end opposite that.
So like an overload and then...
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And what often happens with that is the offensive guard to the single defensive end side has to kind of look to the tilted front side, because there's a lot of stunts that go with that tilted front, and you get a one-on-one matchup. You could well see Donald being that defensive end. Again, not on 20 snaps, but it doesn't have to be 20 snaps. It could be 3 or 4 snaps.
Trey, on a wide 9, when the DN is outside the tackle, as the left tackle, what are your rules there? What are you trying to do to make sure he doesn't get by you?
First of all, you don't, when you have a speed rusher that's probably about 2 or 3 yards outside of you, that is like the worst feeling in the world. You know what I'm saying? Especially now, it's good that you're in stadiums that are empty. You can hear the sound, you can hear the snap count and everything. You can get off the ball. But if you're in silent count and you have to look down at the center and then now you have to find that defensive end, that is like the worst feeling in the world, to look out there and see a bad defensive end 2-3 yards outside of you, because that's problem. That means that you really need to get off on the count, and now you need to be really either cutting down that space by sitting at a 45, or you better get to your spot at a vertical and be ready to take on whatever is going to happen.
And one of the things I think you'll see a lot today, they did it last week, is they will line up Leonard Floyd opposite where Donald is lined up. Because what happens a lot is in let's say a base front, defensive front, where you've got, let's say, 2-3 techniques and 2 wide nines, you will see teams, and the Eagles will do this, they will slide to Donald for obvious reasons. So now on the back side of that, you're going to get one-on-one with Floyd on the offensive tackle. And speaking to what Trey just said, Floyd's not great, but his body type and his angles, even though he's not a big-time sack guy, we thought he would be coming out of Georgia. It hasn't quite happened yet, although he had a big-time rush late in the game last week against the Cowboys. But he's a guy that can cause problems with his length and his ability to bend.
All right, I know people are wondering, what about Carson Wentz? You're talking so much about the offensive line. What about Carson? I know you want to get a line point.
I just want real quick,
you
so
know
that
we have
people
to follow a script,
just
right?
so people can understand what slide protection is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because a lot of people hear us talking about slide, but they don't really understand it. When you're talking about slide protection, we're only talking about which way the center is going.
Yeah.
Okay, so the center dictates the slide.
Right.
So he's going to be the extra guy. And when you're talking about slide protection usually goes to the passing strength of the offense. And the passing strength of the offense is where the most wide receivers are.
Yeah.
So say if it's 11 personnel and you have one running back and one tight end, you can have a receiver, tight end on one side, and if you have 2 receivers on the other side, then that's going to be the passing strength side. So the one side is going to be slide, the other side is going to be man. So when you have an overloaded defense like that, and you pushing everybody, what they're trying to do is to control that center. Because if you can keep that center on one side, then now you can open up and run games on the other side, because you know that the other side is going to be man.
You normally slide to the, as he said, the passing strength, because you're normally sliding to the slot corner.
Exactly.
Because he's normally part of blitz packages.
Right.
Right.
9 times out of 10, most blitzes are coming from the passing strength side.
Right.
There you go. All right, we will get to Carson Wentz. We will talk about it first. I want to remind everybody, retweet, repost. If you're watching this show, please help us spread the word. Make Inside the Birds Live pregame the most watched pregame show on the planet. You're not going to get slide protection talk anywhere else. Everybody's got to talk and know about slide protection. We thank people at Goose Hill Brewery. Again, come down, get your comped Fly PA, IPA. Everybody cheers.
Mine.
Yes,
another one.
It's awesome.
Before we talk Carson, though, I do want to just finish up on the defensive end rotation here. Let's say Brandon Graham plays. Barnett's probably going to play for the first time. We'll get the inactives when they come out. Barnett's going to play. Sweat is a guy that they've limited touches because of his history of knee injuries. I don't really know who starts opposite Brandon Graham to get the most impactful reps.
Yeah, it depends on Barnett's, just how strong he is physically. A couple of practice observers noted that he looked a little smaller than he normally would, Geoff, I'm told. So you got to see where he's been. Look, it's been over 5 weeks since he's had this injury. So you have to see where he's at. You don't know that. When he's not practiced for 5 weeks, this is really his first week back, you got to see where he's at. And they're not super deep at DN here. This is where, when they cut Sharif Miller, this is a perfect time to get him involved as your 5th DN, get him some snaps. And now he's in Carolina. And also, Rasul Douglas, by the way, did you see how many times he played last
I believe
week?
he played 86% of the defense last week.
Wow.
Now, they didn't play very well on defense.
But they could use him.
They could have used him, absolutely. Is this the game, real quick, where you're situational with your right defensive end, where maybe on the run you get Malik Jackson in there a little bit? For the pass, you're varying between Josh Sweat and Jannard Avery a little bit. Maybe even get Casey Toohill up there for the first time.
Yeah, but the problem with this offense is that they run play action extremely well. I mean, and everything looks like a run. So you might get out there 1st and 10 and you try to go big, and then next thing you know, you're getting hit over the top with a nice little play action.
And one quick point, I know we want to get to Wentz and all that, but there's so much great stuff here with what the Rams do offensively. We have to get to that too. So however you want to do that.
We will do that, I promise you. It's in the script.
But I was just going to make one quick point. When you do outside zone run action, which is the foundation of what the Rams do, one of the reasons that's so effective is then the defensive line starts moving laterally. And as an offensive lineman, you absolutely love that, because then they have to redirect to pass rush. So that's a big deal, because doesn't that really help you as an offensive lineman?
Yes,
they have to redirect a defensive lineman.
Cool. All right, speaking of someone who needs a little redirection, Carson Wentz, after a pretty, is that a good segue?
Yes, that was.
Not bad.
Awesome segue.
I'm even wearing a jacket.
You're a professional.
That's right.
As far as we know.
I think it's been kind of dissected and beaten up throughout the week, whether it's the bad habits, just not being able to ground the ball or throw it away when you have a chance. Some of the stuff, Greg, we talked about last week, even the missing layups, right? There were a few passes
Too
that
many,
he normally makes.
but there's reasons for that. You want to get into that?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I want
Right.
you to start off. It's like you read my mind.
Well, there's technique issues
Uh-huh.
that I think if you go back to 2016 and 2017 when there was a different coaching staff, I think those were worked on constantly and hammered out in more detail than they are now. And again, I'm not there every day. This is, I know how hard I work. I know coaches work hard. This is not a knock on the staff. I'm just telling you what the film shows. That's all I'm doing. People can take it however they want it. But Carson Wentz has a couple of tendencies that need to be cleaned up, and he will then make more layups. And one is he's an overstrider. And when you overstride, here's what happens. I wish I could almost show you, but because you can't do anything in sports effectively when your legs are far apart. It doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. Yeah. You can't do anything when your legs are much wider than your shoulders. Okay, so when you overstride, you have to compensate with your upper body, and he rushes then his upper body to compensate. And when you rush your upper body, the ball sails because it's not comfortable, so you're rushing to throw it, and the ball sails. And the other part of that is you end up falling away from throws. So when you fall away from throws, as opposed to bringing your core with you, the ball will also sail. So he missed Hurts on a play. And I was very happy about this because I broke down the exact play in last week's NFL matchup show. But he missed Hurts on what should have been a touchdown where he just sailed it way over his head. They love that play where they line up two tight ends to the right. And they don't care who's on Hurts. It doesn't matter if it's a corner. They feel very comfortable with Hurts on a corner. You might remember the play. He just sailed it. It's usually a play they run just beyond the 20-yard line, just beyond the high red zone. And they scored a touchdown on it last year versus the Chicago Bears, if people might remember that play.
Right.
But, so those are the issues that need to be cleaned up.
So for anybody who's watching and says, what does Greg Cosell know about overstriding? The man has never played quarterback in the NFL before. I'm going to tell you, Adam and I had Dan Orlovsky from ESPN on our Inside the Birds YouTube show, and that is the exact terminology that he used to describe what he saw wrong with Carson's mechanics against Washington. Overstriding and the influence that you said happens with that. Adam, you've talked a lot about the coaching, going back to John DeFilippo, who he and Carson kind of had head-butted out there going back to his rookie year.
Yeah, so the way it's explained to me by multiple people with Eagles was this. In 16 and 17, when they would grade the tape on Monday, they bring the players in on Monday or Tuesday, DeFilippo and Reich were very hard on Wentz. They would point out everything that needed to be changed, and he listened. Carson came in a little bit headstrong coming out of North Dakota State. They knocked that out of him. They were very critical of him. He took the coaching. They coached him hard. And then you go to 18 when Carson had his back injury. Yeah, he didn't have a great season, but you know what? He was highly accurate in terms of percentage, high 60s, by the way, which I don't think he'll ever hit again. He's a high-risk taker. High-risk taker quarterbacks don't usually throw in the high 60s. Then last season, his mechanics fell off. We could complain and criticize all you want about the lack of help last season, but from a mechanics standpoint, I just know this, from talking to people who were there in 16 and 17 and watched these guys coach, who we just mentioned, Carson was coached very, very hard, and sometimes he didn't love it, but he was being challenged. And Greg was talking about the mechanics. I'll give you another example. Watch his left foot. Two sources told me his left foot this past week, it was on the overstride, his left foot was stiff.
Yeah.
When your left foot is stiff, this is the same thing, by the way, that you and Ron Jaworski told me with Donovan McNabb. His left foot was stiff.
When you lock your front leg, okay?
This is what happened.
And that tends to be the case if you overstride, just by human nature of your body.
Yep.
If you lock your front leg, you can't come through your throw with your core and your hips. So you don't transfer your weight properly.
Exactly. You can't get the right balance.
You can't get the right balance.
Yes.
Right.
So just for people to know, I mean, completed 57% of his passes last week, 72.5 passer rating, which was the 9th lowest of his career, and just the 4th time since his rookie year that it was under 75. And obviously those were his first 2 interceptions going back to last year's game against Miami.
But I do want to say this. The second interception was not on Wentz.
Correct.
The second interception was on Hightower.
Correct.
It was a hitch against a retreating corner, okay? On TV, Darryl Johnson said, the corner was sitting on the route. That was not true. It was a retreating corner. It's a hitch ball, and Hightower went 2 steps too far and then did not come back to the ball.
Okay.
I
So
think
Trey,
also when you look at it, though,
Carson
is he's kind of gotten back to staring down the receivers at times, where on his first interception, you saw him drop back, and it's like as soon as he got the ball in his hand, he was staring left, looking at like, all right, I'm coming to you, I'm coming to you, I'm coming to you. And then the corner just like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get this because they're looking at his eyes. But then you go back and I'm like, okay, when you say coaching, I think there are times in practice where he just feels like anytime you're practicing in the NFL, they want the quarterback to feel good. So you never really take away his first reads in practice. So you don't force the quarterback to scan, to say, okay, well, my first read was gone, so let me go and find who else is open. Because you go back and you look at the interception, where the sack, where Kerrigan, where they ran there was a tight end screen with Dallas, where Kerrigan fell back into that screen and cut it off.
Oh, yes.
Where you had Deshaun Jackson wide open to the left. Why did he not hit that receiver? Because in practice,
my guess is that was also and I don't know this, maybe you do, that was probably the play call, and hey, it was a screen, and that was it. There was nothing else.
In practice, you always let that go.
Right.
But you never in practice say, you know what, we're going to take away that first read. All right, now what do you do?
Right.
Deshaun Jackson was your outlet. So there are too many times where I saw him just out there, just where he takes the drop and he missed a lot of just layups. On the one interception, he had a guy that was wide open. He had one time where Deshaun Jackson just stopped and was right there on the sideline with his hands waving like, hey, throw it to me.
True.
And Carson threw it somewhere else. So I just felt like there were too many easy passes that he just missed in this game.
At the end of the day, to me, and you know, yes, I did not play quarterback in the NFL, but I've been super fortunate in my career. The guy who taught me the quarterback position that I got to know well was Bill Walsh. And I think most people would say he probably knew a little bit. I'm not saying I know as much or more than Bill Walsh, but as Adam knows, because we've known each other for 20 plus years, I've spent a lot of time with guys who really know the position, and I've studied the position hard. There's two parts to, well, there's more, but there's two main parts to playing quarterback that need to be worked on constantly, every day. And one is mechanics and fundamentals. You can't pretend that quarterbacks just know how to do that. I mean, I remember when Ron Jaworski told me that Dick Vermeil brought in Sid Gillman in 1980, the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. And Sid Gillman, even though Jaws had been in the league since 1973, Sid Gillman literally started with the center exchange. That's where he started teaching Jaws in the offseason. The center exchange. And Jaws had been in the league 7 years. You can never look at those things that we view as simple and easy and just say, oh, he knows how to do that. That has to be worked on every single day.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that made Juan such a good offensive line coach for us, because every week was the same. We spent so much time on the fundamentals of it. By the time we got to game time, it was, you know,
it's second nature, right?
And then it was always, all right, we're starting right back over again, like you messed up, but we're just going to keep drilling it.
And the second part, by the way, then the second part of quarterback play, then it gets into the scheme and how the play design and the concepts versus the defense. But if you don't, think of it this way. You can do everything right as a quarterback, okay? But if you can't throw the ball where you want to, you've got nothing, no matter what else you do right.
All right, Adam, anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say this. He's being coached hard. He's being coached, but Geoff, you had said on our show, Inside the Birds, a couple weeks ago, that is he receiving the message and is he taking it?
That's what I wonder.
That's what this coaching tape will show when he sees it. Carson, as the Eagles have told me, is a type A personality.
Yeah.
He sees that tape. He knows he didn't play well. No one has to tell him that.
No, of course
the tape
not.
tells him that's
right,
the
tape, right?
But he's got to accept it, and he's got to do it. A team that's playing the Eagles the next couple weeks told me this. And this guy's in pro personnel, and he does advance on the teams that his team is playing. So that Wentz is a freelancer with mechanics because he thinks he's so special as a thrower. He cannot do this. He doesn't set his feet. We said, how many times on our show, Geoff, last year did we say Wentz after RPOs does not reset his feet? And Greg just brought it up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a year now.
Right.
Well, you
set your feet.
Dan Orlovsky said it. He played with the Lions for a while next to Matt Stafford. He used to say, Matt, why are you going to that play when that play is open? And Matthew Stafford's response would be, because I know I can make that play. And that's just the mentality of a quarterback.
Well, certainly guys with big arms.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got to throw with proper fundamentals, which is what Greg was talking about.
Absolutely. So we got to get to our Manscaped Man of the Game.
All right.
Always my favorite segment, our Man of the Game, courtesy of Manscaped. Now, I'm going to start this off because I blew it last week with Josh Sweat. He had a decent game. But
he had a sack fumble.
He had a sack and fumble, but it kind of got lost in just the overall terribleness of the second half there. I'm big today. My Manscaped man of the game has got to be Fletcher Cox because, and I mentioned this to Adam during the podcast this week. You know, last year, I know he's coming off the surgery. He had some games where you're like, that's Fletcher Cox. He had some games where you're, maybe more than some, where you're like, that's not the Fletcher Cox that I'm used to. I still think he's a very good defensive tackle. I didn't see him real flash at all against Washington much. I think today's the day, with Aaron Donald on the field especially, where Fletcher Cox has to reassert himself as Fletcher Cox before we start to wonder when we start to see the dominant string of performances from Fletcher Cox again.
And the belief around the league is the way you beat the Ram offensive line, it's in the interior. Although some people have told me that Andrew Whitworth does not move. If you think Jason Peters doesn't move that great anymore, Whitworth is even lower. He just does not have the movement anymore. The Eagles D-line, if they're healthy, has a major advantage, and I like putting Fletcher Cox right there as your guy.
Greg, who's your man of the game from Manscaped?
You know, I'm going to go with who we've just been talking about, Carson Wentz, because I think he will bounce back this week. I think that because he's very smart. I remember talking with Josh McCown last year, who told me that Wentz is the smartest quarterback he's ever been around, and McCown played 20 years. So I'll take Josh's word for that, okay? I'm not in the locker room. I'm not there every day, but I'll take Josh's word.
There you go.
So I think Carson Wentz is going to know that he did not play well, missed too many throws. I would expect him to come back and play very well this week.
Adam, give us your Manscaped man of the game.
It is Carson Wentz, but here's my take on it. I think they will help him this week. The one thing I learned from you and Ron Jaworski sitting for 10 years in NFL Films is you guys would always talk about how do you help a struggling quarterback with his accuracy? Get him comfortable, get it out of his hands quickly. Once you get his confidence going, then you start throwing it downfield. It was like last week. It didn't matter how inaccurate it was. They were still going to throw the ball downfield. Get him accurate. Get it to the tight ends who should dominate this game.
That's a great point, because I remember Phil Simms telling me years ago, all he wanted to do was complete passes on his first 5 or 6. He didn't care if they were for 4 yards. He just didn't want to be 1 for 7. He wanted to be 4 for 5.
Get the confidence
because he just
going.
wanted to complete balls. You know?
I just want to know last week, your Manscaped man of the game was Dallas Goedert, and so was yours. Now it's Carson Wentz for you.
We didn't talk about
yours.
it. I swear we did not talk about it.
Last week, your Manscaped man of the game was not a man, but a men collection of offensive line. Who's it going to be this week, Trey?
Oh, it's still the same.
Oh,
the offensive
okay.
line. I mean, after you come out there and you give up 8 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, and you're only able to rush the ball 57 yards, I need y'all to step up this game if we're trying to get a win.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Manscaped?
Oh, man, let me talk to you about Manscaped. All right, so here we go. Man, so, you know, you guys, I spent a lot of time in Florida in the offseason, you know, so, you know, I've messed around and I left my lawnmower at home. So I'm sitting there like, and right before I was getting ready to go out there and purchase the new lawnmower 3.0, you know, I was told that they were about to send me one, so I just waited a little bit. Well, while I'm waiting, the hair started growing back a little bit, you know. So I waited until I got the new lawnmower 3.0 with the 7,000 RPM quiet stroke motor and the LED light, you know what I'm saying? So when I got this new lawnmower 3.0, I went upstairs and I came up down with a design. The missus said, "Baby, what is that?" She said, "You know what, baby, is that a storm cloud with a lightning bolt striking down on a mighty redwood?" I turned to her and I said, "It sure is." And not only does the Manscaped offer the Lawnmower 3.0, which can help you come up with some different designs, they can also get you a nice smooth shave that has your sack as smooth as eggs. And they also have a ball deodorant, an anti-chafing ball deodorant. So not only are they giving something that's pleasing to the eye, they're also giving something pleasing to the nose. They're affecting different senses and pleasing to the touch when you're talking about a sack that's as smooth as eggs. So hey, if you guys want to upgrade and get into your manscaping, go to manscaped.com and use promo code TREY, T-R-A. Promo code TREY, and go to manscaped.com and they'll get you what you need to get yourself together.
Man, I think Hollywood's calling right now.
Wow. How did you okay.
Please, everyone.
How did you do that?
That's
incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. He wasn't reading anything.
No.
Awesome.
Hug your children, please. Doug Pederson versus Sean McVay.
That's next.
Get it back to some football. Look, this is your segment, Greg. You want to talk about the Rams. It's weird. You know, Doug Pederson is 2-0 versus Sean McVay. His offense has outperformed Sean McVay's offense. They've both been to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Doug Peterson's offense exploded and won. Over the Patriots, Sean McVay's not so much. And yet I feel like Sean McVay always seems to get a little bit more love, more credit than Doug Pederson. But I'm sure that there's something more to that than just
Well, yeah,
stats.
I'm not going to talk about it in terms of one versus the other. Let's talk about the Rams offense and what it is. The Rams offense is actually not that complex when you think of it. They do a few things really, really well. It all starts, Goff's mostly under center. They've moved a little bit over the last year to putting him in the gun a little bit more empty sets, but it predominantly starts with Goff under center, and it starts with the outside zone run game, okay? And the outside zone run game then sets up their pass game, because what the outside zone run game does, and we mentioned this briefly, is it gets the defensive line moving laterally, it grabs the eyes of second-level defenders, and then it sets up their play action pass game with either Goff straight behind the center or Goff on boot action. And then they add a couple things to this. They have what we call reduced splits by their wide receivers. They're not a team that normally spreads out their wide receivers unless they're in empty sets.
Like inside the numbers?
So they're tight to the formation.
Right.
Okay, they do a lot of tight
And what does that
looks.
do for their offense? Is that
Well, it
enable
does a
the run
couple of
game?
things. It helps in the run game because they can block third-level defenders. Robert Woods, by the way, who just signed a new deal, is probably he's not overlooked by teams that study him. He's overlooked media-wise. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's just not a true vertical threat, and that's why people don't think of him as a top receiver. But he's terrific. Cooper Kupp's the best third-down receiver in the NFL. Last year, he had 37 third-down catches for over 15 yards a catch and 7 touchdowns just on third down. Wow. Okay, but so they line up in a lot of tight splits, a lot of bunch sets. It's hard to play man-to-man to that. They make it very difficult to do that. The other thing they're the best in the league at is when you play zone, what we call high-low concepts. They attack underneath defenders. A high-low means you run a route that is a short route, and that grabs the eyes of an underneath zone defender, and then there's a route right behind it in front of the deeper defenders. They may be the best in the league at those high-low concepts. So I'll stop now, but there's even more. There's even more to what they do.
As an example, was not the Eagles' first touchdown last week a high-low concept where Ertz ran, I forget who he was lined outside with.
Well, the first touchdown was actually designed to go to Arcega-Whiteside. That was a great play by Wentz. Okay. That was designed with run action to control, I think it was Landon Collins, and Landon Collins did not jump the run action, so Wentz could not throw it to Arcega-Whiteside, who was supposed to then just get behind Collins, but Collins stayed with his depth, so Wentz came to the other side. Yeah. The other thing, now I lost my train of thought here. It'll come back to me.
That was my fault. I got you back on the
How much of this, how much of how, where Sean McVay, where they're running the no huddle, and he's able to stay in the quarterback's ear, because before they cut off his microphone,
at
he's
15
able
seconds,
to, so he's able to go up there, and the quarterback can go out, the Goff could go out there and call the play, but then Sean McVay, now you're forcing the defense to put in a position, and then now he can say, all right, run the play or audible.
Right, they've been running more no huddle, by the way, and they do that a lot out of the gun. And because in the NFL, the coach can talk to the quarterback until there's 15 seconds. See, when you run no huddle, there's 3 kinds of no huddle. You can do it fast, snap the ball right away. You can do kind of mid-tempo, snap it with maybe 17, 18 seconds, or you can just wait until there's 2 or 3 seconds. But the point is the defense has to declare, because they could snap it right away. So what it does is it limits communication and adjustability for the defense.
Yeah, that plays in his advantage.
Correct.
For him to be able to say,
Goff, to me, and again, I hate this term, but people will understand it. Goff's a system guy in the sense that he's very programmed. And there's nothing wrong with that, if the system's really good. I mean, Goff's not going to make the kinds of plays that Patrick Mahomes makes moving out of the pocket. He's a programmed player, but he's a pretty thrower. When he has time and he's comfortable in the pocket, he's a pretty thrower.
Well, when you talk about the no huddle and how that impacts the Eagles, obviously Jim Schwartz has to be very cautious of this, because he's a big rotator on the defensive line, and you don't want to get caught with the wrong personnel out there because the offense hurried up and you don't have your pass rush out, or you've got pass rushers and they got 12 personnel and want to run it down your throat. How does Jim kind of monitor that? Does he have to pick and choose his spots, Trey?
Well, I think that they're going to play 12 personnel a lot anyway. I mean, we're not one that's going to come out there in a lot of base and have like a traditional 4-3 front anyway. So we're going to play a lot of nickel, and then you're going to see, you're going to bring your safeties up a little bit if you feel like it's going to be run. If not, then you have them play back. But I think for just across the board, it's going to be mainly nickel for our defense.
See, I would agree with that. I think they're going to play a ton of sub-nickel even versus 12.
Right.
Because I think that they're going to feel they can defend the run. And in some ways, because you pick your poison defensively, I think in some ways they might say, hey, if you want to hand it to Brown or Akers or Henderson, not that, hey, we want to give up 10 yards, but we would rather you do that than us get burned by chunk plays in the pass game.
We're going to have a word from our friends from Transcend in a second, but first, Adam, I want to throw this to you.
Sure.
In the 2 games that they've played recently, Eagles 36.5 points, Rams 29. Eagles 418 yards per game, Rams 357. Eagles 36% on third down, Rams 32. Both similar in red zone, 60%. Eagles 2 turnovers, Rams 5. Why do you think the Eagles have just seemingly had the recipe to beat this team?
The thing is, and now they don't have Todd Gurley. And Greg was alluding to this. Brown had a good game last week. There's no question about it against Dallas. But the Eagles, if they could have their druthers, they would love the Rams to come out running the football. And I get it that everything they do runs off the run game. Rolling out the quarterback. It seems to all work off of the run game, but they don't have Todd Gurley. They're not special running back anymore. Cam Akers isn't ready yet to be that guy, though he did start last week. The Eagles have issues at corner. If the Rams don't attack those corners, they're going to lose. If they
will
do,
attack the corners.
Well, you think they will, but they don't always do. Coaches sometimes they get an idea of what they think they can do, but obviously the Eagles' weakness is that corner opposite Slay. Maddox is a good football player, but they're not real big at corner. They don't have guys who are long. They have some size issues, which you and I have talked about a lot. But last year, the criticism. I'm sorry?
I said take a number about size issues.
Yeah. We've talked about it for a while. But the criticism I was getting on the Rams offense last year was not having Gurley, they had no answer. And Akers, again, is not ready yet. I think the Eagles have an advantage here. And Trey's right. You kind of know here what the Rams are. They can go multiple. They can go 11. They can go 12. But if they spread the Eagles out, the Eagles are in trouble here. They just don't have the corners on the outside that can stick here.
One final point. They're very good with misdirection, the Rams. Mm-hmm. They have a really good screen game. You know, we always talk about the Eagles screen game, the Chiefs screen game. The Rams screen game is right up there, and they do a lot of misdirection. So they grab the eyes of defenders to go one way based on the misdirection element, and then they come back the other way. Look for that today.
We will.
Kansas City shuffle.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. All right, we want to tell our viewers about our friends at Transcend Facility Maintenance. Transcend Facility Maintenance is focused on keeping spaces where people live, work, eat, recuperate, worship, and learn safe. So contact them for a free consultation and learn how their environmentally friendly products and custom cleaning process can help you. That's Transcend Facility Maintenance. All right.
One note from my friend Dave Spadaro from PhiladelphiaEagles.com. This is a little bit of a surprise. Jalen Hurts, according to Spadaro, will be the number 2 quarterback today. So he'll be active. I know, and the number 2 quarterback, and the inactives aren't even out. So, well,
the number 2 quarterback.
Yes. So
not just active.
Yes. So this tells me what we thought after the draft. You're going to use him a specific way. If he gets in the game, this is the Taysom Hill role that I talked about. People thought I was out of my mind. Mm-hmm. To get him on the field.
Well, you are.
He's not just going to be a quarterback. You use him a specific way. It could be in the red zone, Greg. How would you use him?
Well, I remember after the draft speaking with someone in the front office saying that they liked the idea of having 2 players on the field who could throw the ball. Mm-hmm. So let's see what happens today.
Didn't Press Taylor talk about that?
He did. He's talked about the idea of having more than one player on the field. And this goes back over a year when Press Taylor has said that the future of football is having more than one thrower of the football on the field at the same time.
Ooh.
I feel like Trey is about to give a lecture on this philosophy. He smirked a little bit.
I'm good with that, but do you think that you would put Hurts under center? Because, I mean, if he goes out there and he makes a couple plays under center,
right.
You're talking about a quarterback controversy.
I know. That's why I'm curious about the wording. You're saying he's the number 2 quarterback. But Nate Sudfeld is going to be active, right?
I don't know that because we don't have the active.
Well,
the actives come out in about 10 minutes.
We'll try to make sense of that when the active. We will come back to that. I really want to focus on whether or not Sudfeld is active or inactive, because if he's active, I would have to think if Carson Wentz got hurt, then Nate comes into play
That
quarterback.
Nate would be the
but
yeah.
you can
Right,
still do
right.
what you want with Jalen Hurts.
Very interesting, though.
We'll
Very
see.
interesting.
Look, we got to get into Aaron Donald. He's
Yep.
a monster, as Carson Wentz called him earlier this week. He is a game wrecker, but he's also not somebody who has wrecked the Eagles' game plan much when they've met the last two games. And I'm just going to go through it. He is 0 for 3 lifetime against the Eagles. His team is 0 sacks, 5 tackles, which in 3 games, not too many. 1 tackle for a loss, but he does have 5 quarterback hits. So he's always a presence. Still, he hasn't been a thorn on the side of the Eagles. They've done some things to kind of neutralize him. And I think Trey Thomas has done a great job of putting that together in a little video that we're going to show for our viewers right now on how the Eagles have handled Aaron Donald.
Today we're going to talk about what we can do to kind of stop Aaron Donald and what we've done before. So here we go, 2018. Here we go. We have Aaron Donald over the left side. A nice little play action. You see that we have multiple bodies on him now. That's going to be left guard and center out there putting hands on him. Here he is again over the left side. Now he's a little bit wider over JP, but you see how JP is setting vertical, dragging with his inside hand. Also, you get Sproles involved on that play. Here he is again. Now this is going to show you again how JP is dragging to kind of help him. Kelsey comes over to that side. But now what I want you to see is how that exposes the other side of the line if a blitz comes. So here he is again over the right guard. So now we are able to run a nice little misdirection play here with a tight end trap. Again, over the right guard. Set for him. Now, if he does get you, it's good that Kelsey was on the slide side and was able to put hands on him and help him out. Now, here's a play action here. One of the things that you have to do is finish, because if not, he will. So here we go again. He is over the left side. Now with JP here, now they ran a nice little misdirection, tackle trap. You're using his aggressiveness against him. So now one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that when he does beat you, hey man, running backs and quarterbacks make a play and make it look like it was all part of the game plan. You stopped him before. The question is, can you do it again?
All right, so Trey, what you showed a lot of is getting multiple bodies on Aaron Donald, little plays that are designed to counter his momentum and things like that. The Eagles have done a good job. Can they do it again with the Rams already knowing what the Eagles have done twice?
That's going to be the question because, yeah, you did give a lot of misdirection. You're going to use his aggressiveness against him where he's going to jet upfield. You want to put multiple bodies on him. Sometimes you might have you're going to make sure that if he's in a wide 3 technique, that whoever tackle that is, that he's going to take a vertical set and drag and try to make sure that he keeps an inside hand on him. And then you go to your outside defensive end late. But then now you can also bring in the running back to kind of chip him every now and then. The problem is that when you have him, like say if he's on the opposite side of the protection, like because we just talked about earlier, when you're talking about the passing strength versus the man side and slide side of the offense, if he's on the opposite side where the passing strength is to the right and he's to the left, and now if the center has to go left, that exposes the right side of the line.
Correct.
Now here
One
comes
less
all
body.
the blanks. Yeah.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah, because now you can bring that extra corner. You can bring that extra person. So now it's going to be, you're going to have to be very strategic in how you handle him.
That's a great point because what if they line up in kind of a base front where there's 2-3 techniques, meaning that the 2 defensive tackles are on the outside shade of the offensive guards, okay, and the ends are wide 9s. If you line up Donald away from the passing strength, what more than likely will happen is Kelsey will slide to Donald because you want to get 2 guys on him. So now you can bring blitzes from the other side because you're not going to have enough bodies. So you can bring a 4-man pressure to the passing strength because there's not enough bodies.
When you look at this Rams front a couple of years ago, along with Donald, you would have Ndamukong Suh. You had Brockers, who's still there. I believe you had Dante Fowler.
Right, Brockers is still there.
Yep,
They have Leonard Floyd now.
I feel like maybe a year or two ago they have more bona fide pass rushers than maybe.
Well, they're hoping Floyd fills that role. It's too early to say.
Right. Adam, Aaron Donald, when he's best, we know he's a game wrecker. Trey just explained what the Eagles have done well. Is this part of Doug's strength that sometimes doesn't get? I think about how many times they've not only faced Donald, but they faced Von Miller a couple of years ago, neutralized him. they're generally successful against DeMarcus Lawrence. It seems like when they bring the top pass rushers here, Doug's always got some kind of plan.
He's got a plan, and usually it works. If you go back to 17, the Super Bowl year, I remember talking to the Eagles, and they were going to go after Aqib Talib, and I was like, really? And they did, and they burned him. They repeatedly went after him. If there's a way they need to chip him, Donald, they'll do that. They usually have a really good plan that includes Deuce Staley with the run game and Jeff Stoutland with the offensive line. I do trust their coaches. As much as we've been sort of negative with what happened last week, Doug Pederson has been one of the most resilient coaches in this town. For whatever reason, right when you think he can't get it right, Geoff, he gets it right. That's why he's a Super Bowl winning head coach. He's not perfect, no coach is, but they're going to get it right today. I feel like they're going to have a good plan against Donald. And by the way, it's worked. The other two games, I was at that game in LA 3 years ago. You were on the air here in Philly on the radio. And that game was one of the best games I've ever seen from an offensive standpoint. Quarterbacks going back and forth, yes. Wentz got hurt. But they had a plan, and their protection that day was phenomenal against Donald.
Right.
And it was 2 years ago in LA as well.
All right, in a second, I want to ask Trey Thomas about a specific one-on-one matchup that I think we should be watching in the trenches. But first, again, for our viewers, I want them to learn a little bit more about our friends from Transcend.
Deep cleaning and sanitizing is now more important than ever. That's why you need an expert. Transcend Facility Maintenance. Local businesses large and small trust Transcend to detect and eliminate viruses on any surface. Our affordable custom full-service plans can protect your employees, patients, customers, and community. Transcend Facility Maintenance is a full-service maintenance and janitorial company. To learn more, go to transcendfmc.com. Transcend your expectations and call today to schedule a free walkthrough estimate.
All right, thanks to Transcend. All right, Trey, given what we've said about how they've blocked Aaron Donald in the past, they haven't had to do it with Nate Herbig. So how much are you looking at that matchup right now? I know Aaron can move around, but if I'm Brandon Staley, the D coordinator, I'm thinking that's a matchup where I might have a lot of success right now.
Absolutely. I'm going to chest both guards, but you know that Kelsey's going to go sliding to whichever side that he's on. So, I mean, you know, this is not going to be – I don't think you're going to put Nate on Aaron Donald just by himself, you know, because that can be a game that can totally destroy your confidence when you're going up against someone like Aaron Donald that comes with the type of moves that he comes. I mean, Brandon Brooks, and you saw some of the film that we posted, there are times that he beat Brandon Brooks, and Brandon Brooks is one of the best guards in the game, and Kelsey had to be there to kind of help him. So now when you put him in a situation against someone that really doesn't have a lot of experience, that drops his outside foot a little too much for me at guard. So when I'm saying that he takes a set and then his outside foot drops. So now he's turned a lot more. And you have someone like Aaron Donald that can kind of give you edge. When you go back and you look at the last sack that was given up against Washington, it was because Nate dropped his outside foot and Matt from Temple came in with a nice edge rush, forced Carson Wentz up into the line, and then that's your last sack fumble. So when you have someone like an Aaron Donald that's going to go up against Nate, you know, you might want to send some help, man. I mean, you know, you're going to see a lot of Kelsey making sure that he slides to these guys. And Aaron Donald comes with not only bull rush, he has a nice little button go. He has a nice little clean hands. I mean, he's something that has – he's the type of rusher that has a little bit of everything in his game.
He's got that arm over move that is really tough.
He just turned Matt Ioannidis into a sports talk caller. I'm Matt from Temple.
Right.
I want to talk about Carson Wentz.
Hey, man, Matt from Temple, man, you
He's
know
a
what?
good player.
He's a great player, man. When you go
is.
back and you watch it, I'm like, man, who is this guy? You know, he's
Temple
an animal.
puts a lot of guys in the NFL, by the way.
They're pretty deep on the defensive line, that Washington team. All right, we're going to get to the inactives as soon as they come out pretty soon. I also want to tell everybody about our friends at Rebel Hill Productions. Look, do you like what you're seeing? You like the graphics? Do you like the fact that four guys can sit here and talk about football and look good? I think we look all right.
I look
Let
amazing.
me tell you.
I look amazing.
You do look amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks to Rebel Hill Productions.
Manscaped.
All right, if you're enjoying today's show, the bright lights, the fancy graphics, and quality sound, it's all thanks to the team at Rebel Hill Productions. Reach out to Zach and Jim at Rebel Hill today for a free consultation to discuss your digital strategy and content needs at info@rebelhillconsulting.com. That's info@rebelhillconsulting.com, or call 215-668-8498. That is Rebel Hill Productions. They do a fantastic job because they make Adam look really good.
It's hard to do. Not easy.
Inactives, we're waiting on. They'll be out momentarily. Obviously, we have to see.
We know that Jalen Hurts is going to be active for the first time in his NFL career, and Dave Spadaro from PhiladelphiaEagles.com says he's the number 2 QB. So we will find out that role and if Sudfeld is healthy. Is active or not. That is fascinating. Obviously, we know a couple of the inactives already. The question is, for some of these guys, how much do they play come off injury? We'll have those answers in just a matter of moments, but it's been a great show so far, my friend.
Yeah,
It's been
well,
phenomenal. Thank you
one
very
guy we
much.
haven't talked. I'm sorry, you brought up
Go ahead,
Jalen
go ahead.
Hurts.
Yeah.
I really quickly want to get into Jalen Ramsey while we wait for the inactives
Yes,
because
yes.
I've heard it been said, and Greg, you're a tape breakdown guy, that last year, he gets traded to the Rams, didn't have maybe a top 5 type corner year. So I'm wondering how you felt about his tape last year, and maybe if you had a chance to see him last week.
I did.
Okay.
I
know you
I
did.
would agree with that about last year. But he's highly skilled. He's a big-time traits and attributes. He's big, he's long, he's explosive. I mean, he has all the traits you look for in a man-to-man corner. And one thing the Rams did last week as the game progressed against Dallas, they didn't match him up to any specific receiver. He played the boundary corner, meaning he played to the short side of the field. And as the game progressed, they would simply match him up man-to-man on whoever the boundary X receiver was. And with the Cowboys, it's normally Michael Gallup. It's not Cooper. It's normally Michael Gallup.
Right.
But what that did is they play what we used to call with Rex Ryan back in the old days, the Darrelle Revis coverage, where he'd play what essentially zero man, meaning that the safety to the boundary, who's John Johnson, by the way, he's the boundary safety, he would basically come inside and help out so you have an extra body to play inside, and Ramsey would simply play pure man.
Right.
And he's capable of doing that.
All right, what do we got?
Inactives. Nate Sudfeld is inactive, so they will only address
Wow.
2 QBs. Jalen Hurts is the number 2 QB. Jeffrey, we knew. Jason Huntley, the Eagles will address 3 running backs. Jernard Avery is inactive. That's a small surprise here.
Whoa.
Barnett is active. Jamon Brown is inactive like we thought would be the case, but expecting to be active next week. Now, this is surprising only because they signed him off their practice squad. Sua Opeta is inactive. So
Why'd they
Herbig
sign
definitely
him?
will start. Yeah, I don't know. That is weird, but Sudfeld, Jeffrey, Huntley, Avery, Brown, Opeta are your inactives.
So does that mean that they think Barnett can play 40 snaps? I mean,
Yeah,
Trey,
apparently
don't you
so.
think they believe then he can play that many snaps?
Yeah, I guess so. They feel like, hey, go at it. You've had all this time off. All right, hey, you're a fresh
Yeah.
body.
We'll see.
Go get
Yeah,
it.
go
Prove a
play.
year for Derek Barnett. I mean,
Yes, it is.
If I'm Derek Barnett and they say you're going to play 40 snaps, I don't care if you're ready or not. You're going to say thank you, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Wasn't he the 14th pick in the draft, something like
He
that?
was the 14th overall pick.
So, I mean, they're expecting this year for Barnett to really be a big-time player.
Yeah. So I still can't wrap my head around Nate Sudfeld, though, being inactive, Jalen Hurts being the number 2. I have to think that maybe maybe Nate Sudfeld maybe tweaked something.
Well, he wasn't
because
on the injury
No.
report. But here's the deal. He is 1 injury away from being the starting
That's what I'm
quarterback.
saying. Yeah.
That's where
At
we're
very
right now.
least, you would have Nate as a active. Even if you wanted to put Jalen Hurts as your number 2 quarterback, wouldn't you have Sudfeld active just in case?
Well, I think you look at it as, you just come off of a performance where you gave up 8 sacks, 15 quarterback hits. And one of those hits, you saw Carson get up a little, like, that one hurt a little bit. So if you're going up against a defensive front that's extremely active and getting after the quarterback, that second guy that comes in needs to be somebody that can get out of trouble and be able to scramble it around and possibly, you don't need another statue back there. So maybe that's why you bring a Hurts in to be able to be the athlete back there if something goes wrong.
The big question is, will they line up Hurts as a true quarterback on certain snaps? That, to me, is the very interesting question.
I cannot wait to see this.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, I think people should be excited a little bit because you're probably going to see Jalen Hurts in some kind of role. As you mentioned, with all the hits that Carson Wentz took last week, and we know that he's come out of games before, this just seems like a roll of the dice on the Eagles' standpoint. So they must have some kind of plan.
Look, it gives them, they kept it quiet. Good job by them.
Yeah.
It gives the defense something to think about, a little bit of a
Yeah.
wrinkle. And as Greg was talking about, you don't know quite how they're going to do it, but I think when you and I talked on our post-draft show, when you draft a QB
In the second round.
okay,
Yeah.
he's not just a quarterback. You don't draft a number 2 quarterback in the second round. It's never happened. I've covered this business 21 years.
They drafted him as a quarterback.
Yes,
Now,
but-
that doesn't mean they can't use him in
But
other
you're
ways.
going to use
but
him
they
in a different
drafted
way.
him as a quarterback.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you're going to use him as a different way. Now, you're not spending the money that you did on Nick Foles. Sure, you're saving money under the salary cap. But there's a different way you can use him to give the defense something to think about. And if it happens like what you and I had talked about after the draft, this is going to be fascinating because the Rams have never seen this. They have
right.
no idea what the Eagles are going to throw
No.
at him.
How would
They
you
can't prepare for it. How do you prepare for it?
How would you describe what you saw from a discipline standpoint from the Rams defense against Dallas? Which does not do a whole lot of
Oh, I
things.
thought they were good.
Yeah.
I was impressed with the Rams defense.
Okay.
I thought they did a lot of things, given that it was a pandemic offseason. I thought that Brandon Staley did a lot of things. They were pretty multiple with what they did. The one thing that surprised me was just personnel. I thought for sure Taylor Rapp would be their starting strong safety.
I did too. I was
but
surprised.
John Johnson ended up being kind of the strong safety, and Jordan Fuller, a rookie from Ohio State, ended up being basically their free safety.
Yeah.
And he made a big play in the game on a 4th down. But so that surprised me. Taylor Rapp, they played very few snaps of dime, predominantly sub-nickel, and Taylor Rapp did not play that many snaps in that game. I was kind of surprised by that.
Second round.
I liked him coming out. I knew he had coverage, limited coverage.
Well, he played
abilities.
a lot last year as a rookie.
Right.
Because they played again, different coordinator, but last year they played a ton of sub-dime with 6 defensive backs, and Rapp played a lot. We'll see as the year progresses, will they stay with playing predominantly sub-nickel, or are they going to play more sub-dime, in which case Rapp will get more snaps? We don't know that.
I want to get back to Jalen Ramsey and how they're going to use him. What school did he go to, Trey?
Of course, you already know Florida State.
Oh,
man.
okay, right.
You already know. That's why when you talk about all these great things and what he brings to the table, I mean, of course.
But of course, right? I
Florida
mean,
State.
there's Dion, and then there's Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Ronald Darby right up there.
Come on, Florida State.
He is a big-bodied guy who some people felt had the attributes to be able to play safety in the league,
Yeah, but he's a corner.
or hybrid, right? Is he someone that is used the way Dallas, or could they use him the way Dallas used to use Byron Jones against the Eagles, match him up against Zach Ertz, put him on Goddard? Do you see that, or is he strictly going to be outside?
I think you're going to put him up against whoever's going to hurt the team. Whoever's going to be, whoever you want to shut down, you go ahead and put Ramsey out there and like, all right, you know what? You're not making the play.
So you would theoretically put him on the inside against Zach Ertz?
If you need to.
You know what? You could, because they have Hill at corner opposite Ramsey, and he's been there for a number of years. He can play outside. Now, he moved into the slot when they went to their nickel, but he's played outside. Then they had Williams play on the outside. You theoretically could, against 12 personnel, you theoretically could go with Williams and Hill on the outside and Ramsey matching up to Ertz or Goddard, whoever you choose, if you want to. I mean, this is something we don't know. Could it happen? It could happen.
If that happens, if you're Doug, do you then look at whatever your X matchup is on the outside? You've now got Jalen Reagor, but not matched up against Jalen.
Well, you also have
Ramsey.
Deshaun.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
you'd
you
like
have
to
Deshaun
think.
at the Z, yeah.
You'd like to think if that was the case, that again now it comes down to explosive plays. What are the route concepts? You'd like to think you'd be able to create some explosive plays on the perimeter.
Right.
Yeah. But I think you're going to see him more up against Deshaun Jackson.
So do I.
Yeah.
Ramsey on Deshaun.
Yeah, the Ramsey on
opposite
Deshaun,
Z.
yeah.
Okay.
One note, Casey Toohill is active over Jernard Avery, which is a little bit surprising.
Very interesting, yeah.
That's
So
Thank you.
the more I think about that, they had an opportunity with Opeta to make him active. They signed him from the practice squad, but they're making him inactive, but yet they didn't call up. They could have, instead of signing Opeta, right, they could have signed maybe Osman for the game or just for a while because they were thinner at defensive end.
But it speaks to what they must have thought about Barnett in practice this week. They clearly
Correct.
think he could play a decent amount of snaps. And also, it's not like last week. Last week was in the low 80s, very warm, low 60s here. You're not worried about the weather. You're not worried about guys wearing down. They're going to have 5 DNs here. I'm just surprised that Toohill is active over a guy like Avery, who they traded a 4th-round pick for, who we know he overcame his knee injury pretty well. It's a little bit surprising to me that happened.
All right, well, we'll have to see how that works out. I want to talk again real quick because we were talking about the Rams. And then the Inactives came out and we started talking about Jalen Hurts and what he can do from a weapon standpoint. But one thing that Jim Schwartz noted in his press conference this week was that Jared Goff was a little bit more mobile, or they used his mobility last week against Dallas in a way they haven't seen before. And
Well,
interestingly, we have Schwartz talking about it, so I want to play that for our viewers right now. Jim Schwartz on Jared Goff's mobility.
Yeah, one of the things I'd probably say that really stood out, more when we started watching him was his increased mobility. They're using a lot more bootleg passes, and he's not just easing into those. Sort of in years past, he was sort of, he would run the boot, but he was really just sort of buying time to find guys that were open. Now, he's getting that ball in the boot, and he is sprinting full speed and really putting a lot of pressure on the width of your defense. So I think that's probably the biggest change. He's an outstanding play action passer. always has been. You know, that's been a big thing for him. He really executes those fakes really well. You know, it makes it difficult on the defense if they're looking at the wrong thing, because if they look at him, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between run, boot, and play action. So I think he has, you know, a little bit like we talked about, their scheme taking a little bit of step in the last calendar year or so. He's certainly added to his game, and I think that mobility, he's not afraid to scramble. He's hard to hit because he'll just slide and get down, doesn't subject himself to a lot of hits. But you know, his mobility is an added thing that sort of puts pressure on the defense.
All right, so Jim Schwartz basically saying that the Rams last week, Greg, used Goff's mobility in their game planning. It wasn't just freelance maybe in the past. How'd you see it?
No, absolutely. They're using a lot more designed boot action. And see, the thing is, this fits into what I spoke about earlier with their misdirection game. Because second-level defenders have boot rules. When the quarterback boots, let's say boots to the right, and by boot I mean, you know, he leaves the pocket, okay?
Right.
So if he boots to the right, design movement, second-level defenders, what you normally get with boot is you get a backside crossing route, a route that comes from the backside to the side that the quarterback rolls out to. Okay, so second-level defenders have boot rules. They try to hunt up that crosser. We saw this last week on their first series on the 31-yard screen to Robert Woods. Mm-hmm. We saw Van Der Esch and Xavier Woods, the safety, as soon as Goff booted to the right, what they did is they immediately looked to hunt up the backside crosser, because that happens 99.9% of the time. And then they went back to the screen to Woods. There was literally only one defender out there. It was Jalen Smith and 3 offensive linemen to block him. You remember the play? Mm-hmm. You know, so there's boot rules that everybody knows. This is the way it's taught defensively. So they've been using him on boot action a lot more. And sometimes they'll go misdirection. Sometimes they'll stay front side. But that's part of their game plan.
You showed a play on the matchup show. It was the screen game. We're talking about the Rams here.
Yeah.
It was they faked the one side and they.
That was the Robert Woods play.
The conflict. This is what someone said to me from another team.
Yeah.
When you roll Goff out and you have those receivers and tight ends screaming at the linebackers, you put them in conflict. They're not sure. You only have a split second to pick it up.
Well, because guys have rules.
Right.
Yeah, the game. Every position. Trey can speak about this with the offensive line.
Right.
There's rules. No one's just out there. You know, it's like he talks about protection. Mm-hmm. There's rules, and protection can't change in the middle of the play. Correct. Just like your defensive assignment doesn't change in the middle of a play. People have rules. Now you can react based on what you see, and great players have great instincts and they react a certain way. But there's still rules.
But what I would tell you, though, speaking of those rules, the Rams will run at those Eagles linebackers. We've talked about that before. The knock coming from other teams who grade the Eagles tape is they're not very instinctive. Mm-hmm. This is why some of these guys were not drafted. This is why Nate Gary, who was a safety.
Well, he was a safety in Nebraska.
Yeah. Right. He's a linebacker now. These guys are not high-end linebackers, Geoff. So if I'm Sean McVay, I am going right after those guys. And T.J. Edwards is one of the Eagles' most improved linebackers. He's still not a coverage linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you're Sean McVay, that's what you do. If you're Jim Schwartz, Trey, and you know that your linebackers are not as maybe NFL standard as some other teams, what are you doing?
There's nothing really you can do. Mm-hmm. You can try to get pressure there. You can try to send the blitz, but we don't even blitz that much.
Right.
You know, I think we only blitzed, maybe one time last week against Washington?
Very little,
yeah. I mean, you know, and it was only because we had Nate Gary up on the line of scrimmage.
Okay. So Gerald Everett is active.
Gerald Everett.
He is active. Oh boy, he's one of the more athletic tight ends in the league. Before he got hurt last year with a sprained knee, he was that coverage 3 beater. That D coordinators were showing me he was winning a lot against cover 3. We'll see how the Eagles cover him, but they are so loaded, Greg, in pass targets. The Rams are. They might be the deepest.
Well, and they got a second-round pick in Van Jefferson, who made a big catch last week. And he was, I thought, other than Jerry Jeudy, he was the second-best route runner coming out in this draft. And he played in the SEC. And when I watched his tape against Alabama, LSU, he was winning against those corners. He's not explosive in terms of verticality, but he knows how to run routes.
You know what his dad is?
Oh, of course.
Sean Jefferson.
Yeah.
Sean Jefferson formerly of the Chargers player, right? But now as
he's a coach. He's been a wide receiver coach for years.
One more thing on Jared Goff. His game last week, if you just read the stat line, Greg, you would think, I think it was like 31 of 50 or whatever it was. It was no touchdowns, I think, but
he was efficient.
Think it was good.
They
right?
were quietly efficient in that game. You know, numbers are numbers. I mean, but he was the whole offense was quietly efficient. They ran the ball well. The screen game was effective. They worked the middle of the field in their pass game exceptionally well. They really worked between the numbers and between the hashes so well, because at its core, what they do is they stretch you horizontally with the outside zone run game, and they expand you vertically with their route concepts, and that opens the middle of the field against zone coverage.
Right.
They do that as well as any team in the league.
Adam, who are the Rams? They did not make the playoffs last year, a year after going to the Super Bowl. I think a lot of people thought they would. I'm trying to think if they made a significant number of moves in the offseason. I don't think that they did.
Well, defensively.
Well, defensively,
right.
Leonard Floyd obviously was a move, and we'll see if he can get back.
Well, the
to where he
coordinator
was.
too. That was a big move.
Well, Kevin O'Connell comes in, who Sean McVay coached with in Washington. He's a smart young coach.
Yeah, I know Kevin very well.
Pretty innovative. He knows the West Coast concepts. And Brandon Staley, who was a guy in college, I believe he was at Western Kentucky. He was the up-and-coming defensive coordinator who some people in college football told me would be a head coach. So here's something that happened last year. This is why I knew Wade Phillips was going to be out. For the first time in Sean McVay's career, he was spending a lot of time with the defense in the off-season practices last year, and he had not done that. Even in the install period, he was not with the offense; he was with the defense. So Ramsers told me. So you knew that he was not liking the defense. So you bring in a young, innovative coach, Brandon Staley, who worked with Vic Fangio in Denver, in Chicago. So bring some of those concepts, but he's sort of a super smart guy who's got a little bit headstrong.
Staley, you talking about?
Yeah, talking to people who've worked with him.
That's all the Rams need is another super smart guy on their coaching
He's a
staff.
very good coach. He's a young guy. So Sean McVay went a little bit younger here. But from a personnel standpoint, they're good. I think they're beatable in defense, but I'm really anxious to see, when we turn our attention to the Eagles, how Doug Pederson and their offensive staff attacks this defense. You know Ramsey's, Greg was talking about, he was the boundary corner. On the other side, how are you going to attack him? How are you going to attack him in the middle? John Johnson's a good player who was coming off surgery from last season, but there's some matchups they have to win. You've got two great tight ends here. Goddard is now on tape as being a movement guy and a guy that could go down the seam. Who else can make a play here, Greg? Who do you see who else can make a play for the Eagles here?
Well, I think Deshaun has to become a factor in this game. Now, that may not be volume. I'm not talking 12 or 13 targets. I'm not sure he's that guy. But there has to be an explosive play element to the Eagles. Look, Rager at the big catch last week, it was 3rd and 22. That's not going to happen on 3rd and 22 very often. You can't just look at that and say, oh, let's do that. I think in terms of orchestrating big play concepts, whether it's 1st and 10 or 2nd and 4, you need to orchestrate big play concepts and then hit them. And I think Deshaun has to be a factor, whether he's running a post, whether he's running a deep crosser. You've got to get him involved as a vertical threat in this game.
Trey, offensive line-wise, I know coaches go and think, hey, we have a plan for Donald. But do you go with 7-man protection? How do you handle Donald from a protection standpoint?
I think they're going to slide Kelsey to his side a lot. I think that's going to be the number one thing. You can try to go 7-man protection. You can try to bring the defensive tight ends in, receivers in, line them up a little bit to try to force those defensive ends in a little closer to the tackles. But I think for the most part, you're going to slide the center to whichever side Aaron Donald is, and then now that's going to expose you now to some of the games and blitzes that can come. So, it's going to be a challenge today just in how you handle which way you're going to – because to me, I would just say, you know what, if I were the offensive line coach, hey, man, you're the starter. Let's go get after it. This is what you're here for. Of course you want to slide sometimes every now and then, but you got to train guys that at some point, hey, man, go do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's your season opener. You're coming off a bad loss. You can double Aaron Donald and try to handle him like you've done before. You're right. You leave one-on-ones for other people, but, I'm sorry. If Leonard Floyd is that other person, you're the Eagles. You got to say, we can't lose to Leonard Floyd. We've blocked better pass rushers.
Right.
This guy isn't the second coming of Lawrence Taylor.
The Eagles are in an interesting situation with their pass game because you can minimize pass rush with your play calling with quick game, whether it's 3-step drop, quick 5-step drop. Those kinds of throws are pretty defined reads. You're not reading the whole field in a 3-step drop or a quick 5-step. But those are also shorter throws, so the Rams will know that as well. Or you can go shot play, and shot play is usually a 7-man protection, okay? Those plays, what I was just talking about a moment ago, you've got to hit some of those. You're not going to hit 10 of those, but you've got to hit something with that.
One more, number 26, Miles Sanders. We haven't talked about him for about an hour.
Yeah.
In the screen game, or on that H-seam pass.
The H-seam.
H-seam is the pass that few running backs could run like he ran.
All
he
go
is so
H-seam.
explosive. They got to get him involved, Geoff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They've got to get him involved because he's the missing link in that run game and also in the screen game. What happened to the Eagles screen game, Cosell?
Well, it's not good. I think when you go back and you look at the screen game, the timing of it is off for one. You know, when you're talking about the screens, the offensive linemen have to give it a 2 count. So it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then you go. But then now you have to start hitting your landmarks. And we're usually always late getting out, and we don't hit our landmarks. So when you're saying, okay, one of the landmarks is if we're on the left hash, but let's say if we're on the right hash, and we want to run a screen to the right, that means that that front side guard needs to be on the outside of the numbers. Then the center is going to be down the middle of the numbers, and then the left guard is going to check anything back, and then he's going to turn up, and he needs to be on the inside of the numbers to create that lane. But a lot of times you see us either getting out of it late, and then we don't hit our landmarks.
Why are they late? Why are they late?
I don't know. Sometimes you had one time where you had Nate go out, and he was late, where the defensive end came. It was a linebacker came in, and they crushed the screen right out of the gate. You know, so to me, it has to be drilled at the gate. 1001, 1002, go.
And last week, look, Kerrigan made a great play last week because he recognized it. But I mean, in the screen game, and Trey can speak to this, offensive linemen have clear landmarks and who they have to block. You got to take care of the force player, then you got to take care of the inside player, then you got to take care of the alley player. It's all carefully orchestrated and calibrated. It's not just, hey, let's throw a screen and let's go block people, right? I mean, this is all calibrated and orchestrated.
And they don't go out and cut. You know, for whatever reason, I don't know why they don't cut the defenders. They try to go out there and try to man up on them. You're going up against a linebacker or a corner or a safety. Go ahead and cut that front side knee, and then you're done.
When did that happen? Because I feel like Kelsey, that was one of his strengths. He used to get out to that second level on that screen and just go right at the guys.
Yeah, but, you know, go ahead and cut that front side knee. For whatever reason, guys nowadays don't want to cut. You see it a lot of times on some of the run games where on the backside it would normally be a cut on the 3 technique, but they don't get into that too much anymore.
What you might see, too, in the run game, and you can speak to this, Trey, I think you might see some traps because when you've got a 3 technique like Aaron Donald, you want to encourage him to come upfield and then you trap him. You might even see sprint draw. We've seen that in the past. You know, Kelsey's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Kelsey's really good at that.
Darren Sproles would
yeah,
be a big
so
part of that, right?
just 2 runs you may see today that can attack this specific defensive line.
But one of the things they cannot do, and they need to get away from, is sending Ertz in there to go do the trap blocking. You know, too many times they're trying to.
Well, you mean the wham block?
Yeah, they're trying to send
the wham block.
They're trying to send wham or they're trying to send Ertz in there to go in there and take care of a defensive tackle, man.
Well, we've seen them run the wham game where they do that. Maybe not today, but the trap game I think you could run.
All right. The moment of truth has arrived.
Uh-oh.
It is time for us to atone for our terrible job of picking the game last
they were
week.
up 17-0.
So we picked a really good first half.
And I said 17 points.
You did what?
Did you?
I did say 17 points.
Good job by you.
Last week, yeah.
All right. Which team?
I picked us to win, but I said 17.
All
Eagles.
right. We'll give you 3/4 of a point. We all get a half a point. You get a 3/4. Maybe we can do better this week. Of course, you know, our draft, our pick segment is sponsored by DraftKings, and it sure was nice seeing the team back out on the gridiron over the weekend. Lucky for us, that was just week 1. There's no better place to get in on all of the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. To add to the excitement of week 2, DraftKings Sportsbook is bringing back their can't-miss offer. If you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook yet, head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss this. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new users the chance to turn $1 into $100 when they bet on any team. That's right, you can place a $1 bet on any team, and if that team wins, you cash in a cool Benjamin. How can you pass that up? If you're new to DraftKings Sportsbook, head to the app now to scout their latest offers. Bet with DraftKings Sportsbook, a book that goes wherever you go. DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code ITB when you sign up to get this can't-miss offer. Pick any team during week 2. Bet $1 on them, and you win $100 if they win. That's $1 to win $100. when you use the promo code ITB during sign-up for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in Indiana, it's 1-800-9-WITH-IT. All right, before we get into picks, I'm just curious. I want everybody, just a quick summary of how you think the game's going to go. Greg, like the complexion.
So the game flow.
The game flow. Is this going to be like last week? Is it going to be a totally different, maybe more offensive? How do you see the complexion of the game?
Boy.
Question, though.
Come on, this is why we bring you in.
Yeah,
It's a tough call.
So we can tell you when you're wrong.
That's a tough call.
Tough one.
I mean, I've been struggling all week in watching the Eagles tape and then obviously the Rams with the new coordinator of trying to get a feel for what the Eagles offense will look like today. Mm-hmm. Because last week, both watching the game on TV and then watching the tape, with 50 called passes and 17 called runs in a game in which they were up 17-0, I don't think their offense had any flow to it at all. Mm-hmm. So, I guess to me, and this is just an intuitive thing. You can tell when an offense has a rhythm to it, okay? And I think that the Eagles offense, even last year down the stretch in those final 4 games, they didn't have a lot of big plays, but there was a rhythm to their offense. And I think I'd like to see that. And I don't know exactly what that means in terms of play calling, but the Eagles offense needs a rhythm.
When they were up 17-0, though, when their first few drives were beautiful, did you feel like they had some sort of a rhythm? Did they look good?
I felt like they hit like when they came out and they came out throwing the ball in that first series. I guess they hit Jackson on the dig. They hit Goddard on that early,
Yep.
And then they got in the red zone, and I thought that was a great play by Wentz because it was designed for Arcega-Whiteside. Yes, I felt that there was a rhythm to what they were doing for sure.
Trey, real quick, how do you see the complexion of the game going?
I don't know. When you go back and you look at just how it was happening last week, maybe you can try to get some of these quick matchups going, some quick throws possibly to get Carson comfortable, to get the ball out of his hand. Maybe you try to get a little bit more emphasis on the run game.
Yes.
You look at a lot of times they ran 39 toss crackers where you try to run an outside zone, toss to the left side a couple times, and guys just weren't getting out and making any blocks. So maybe they're going to try to get this run game going a little bit more, get Wentz the ball out of his hand a little bit quicker. But one of the reports that came out is just how winded everybody was, just because, they hadn't had any preseason games. So, and then just the energy that guys need. You don't have the fans there. So where are your leaders that's going to be that spark plug for this team? So it's kind of hard to call how this is going to play out.
High scoring or low scoring, seesaw or
I like it fairly high scoring. Weather will not be a factor. The Eagles are healthier than we expected. That is the biggest surprise to me of this week, is that so many players we thought, they may not play. They're playing this week. Well, they're active this week. We'll see how much they play. So that's a good thing. And I just feel like the resiliency of Doug Pederson as this head coach. He always seems to rally the troops. And the buy-in factor, Geoff, you and I have talked to these players from time to time. The buy-in that they have with Doug Pederson, he always seems to get them ready to go here. It's their home opener. I get it. There are no fans there. But they are at home. They have an advantage. I think they're going to take advantage of that. And I think they're going to be throwing this game. But I like the point that Trey said. Short passing game, take what's there, and then work it upfield as you go along.
All right, well, for our viewers and people watching who may want to wager on this game, courtesy of DraftKings, let me tell you that BetQL has some really interesting stats and metrics, all the trends that are designed to help you make your wager. For example, as they told us, BetQL says that 60% of the money going in on this game was going toward the Rams.
Really?
All right, 60% of the money and tickets were on the Rams. And yet they project the Rams this year to win about 51% of their games. So the Rams are already 1-0. And so if you follow that trajectory, 1-0, 1-1, 2-0, you get to the point where you're 500. So that's interesting on how it comes down to this game with them already off to a start. Plus, everybody knows Doug Pederson has a very good home record. However, Sean McVay is 18-7 career on the road. That's a pretty good road record. Wow. 18-7 on the road. However, as BetQL will tell you, that is a West Coast team now coming to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game, and there are some really interesting trends and stats on that. So check out BetQL, download their app, BetQL, BetQL.com is their website, and if you sign up, use the code BIRDS to get 20% off a sign up. That's a pretty good discount there. 20% off. My math tells me that's 1/5, right? Is that right? 20% off?
Correct.
1/5. I'm 20% correct about 30% of the time. So we will now do our pick segment, courtesy of DraftKings. Now, DraftKings has the Eagles favored by 1.5. Earlier this week, the Rams were favored, and the Eagles were plus 104. And in the podcast, I told Adam, if anybody really thinks the Eagles are going to win, now is the time to get in on them because you can make more money with them being the underdog. Now, last I checked, the Eagles are favored by 1.5. So that's the line. The total is 44.5. So they're kind of projecting probably a lower scoring game by today's NFL standards. We'll start with you, Greg.
18.5 to 17. They're won by 1.5.
What's that?
You could add. You could.
There you go.
Well, I'm going to have to rely on you here, Jeff. I know I picked the Eagles, and now I can't remember the score I picked.
24-20, I believe.
Was it 24?
Greg, I said I remember everything you say from an analysis standpoint. I don't remember your pick last week. I know you picked the Eagles.
I did pick the Eagles because I believe that they're going to come back. I believe Carson Wentz will play well today. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're explosive enough to get, barring turnovers, and you never can know about those. I don't think they're quite explosive enough to get into the 30s, but I think the Eagles will win today.
All right, 24-20?
Yeah.
All right, Trey, your pick.
Yeah, I don't like this game. I'm just going to be honest. When you go back and you look at what just happened in Washington, I mean, I have a lot of questions in what's going on, and it's bigger than just, hey, guys, just going out there and making plays. It's a little bit of effort, and it's a little bit of coming with some energy, and then where are your leaders when it comes to this game? So until they prove me wrong, I don't like this game, so I think the Rams pull this out 21-14.
Rams 21-14. Okay, Adam, your call.
Big bounce back game for the Eagles. I think they will have their protection corrected as much as they can. I think they will protect. I think they will come out victorious here in a bounce back game, not only for the quarterback Carson Wentz, but for Doug Pederson, and they will win 27-20.
All right, so you say Eagles, you say Rams, you say Eagles 27-20. I think this game is going to be oddly defensive in that there's going to be it's going to be difficult for the teams to move the balls, but I do think you're going to see a couple of big plays that make the score seem bigger than the game actually was. I'm predicting the Eagles to win 31-21.
Wow.
Carson Wentz gets back on track.
Right.
Always about the high score. You watch the NFL games, you see a lot of high scores.
I get it.
I'm just not always right. That's the problem. All right. Thank you, Greg Cosell. Thank you, Trey Thomas, Adam Caplan, Geoff Mosher. Big thanks to Goose Island Brewhouse. Thanks to DraftKings, BetQL, Manscaped, all the people that make this show happen. Come down, get your Goose Island Fly IPA, the official brew of the Eagles. You can still come down and get it comped by Goose Island. They've been wonderful guests. We'll catch you all next week, same time, I believe, on the next Inside the Birds Live pregame show.
Cheers.
Wentz's mechanics, he clearly doesn't listen. This is pretty hard. I
didn't say Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what this guy said to me. He said,
Inside the Birds Live pregame.
He said that
Pregame live.
It's fine.
Wentz needs to be coached hard. He clearly does not listen to the way he's being coached because no one tells you to play with people.
Good job, guys. Excellent job.